Okay.
Ready to go?
We should be, but I'm not sure whether the audio is coming through. This is not. Okay, so okay. We should. If anyone wants to let us know, I think we should be live.
We think we're live. So shall I do a nice clean introduction and put in the mod version of this going forward?
Yeah, there's some sort of issue with camera kind of shutting off. I leave the laptop open. Okay, so yeah, we should be good. We are live. If anyone wants to let us know in the chat whether
it would be lovely to know if we are actually live rather than
we are
just
getting
shouting into the void, which is where most politics is at the moment. So
yeah, can you hear us okay? We're not on the usual, I think we've got the different Wi-Fi than we'd normally use, so it's
a little bit temperamental. We might have to go audio only to get the maximum bandwidth up. But I guess shall we crack on, Simon?
Yeah, just let us know. You're saying, I see we got some comments in the chat that it's a bit glitchy that we're, but hopefully you can follow us at least, even if the video is glitchy. So we're here, we're live at the count. We just thought we'd do a quick introduction as things are. So just as we're going to go round, you might be able to see kind of on the image there, essentially, for those just following an audio, we've got two essential circuits of tables. The one on the left are Portsmouth, essentially the wards in Portsmouth South. The one on the right are the wards in Portsmouth North. I can't zoom in on them because A, our tech is a bit limited, and B, we're not allowed to zoom in case there's any danger that we actually can show individual ballots. So the first thing that's taken place is the ballot boxes come in, and there's a verification and validation process. And that essentially matches the number of ballots that are in the box against the number of names that have been crossed off on the voter register, actually in the polling station. And if there's not, then essentially it kind of goes right back through that, just to double check. But that's essentially the first thing. So before anyone starts counting how many votes there are for any one particular candidate, we basically do that verification process first. And that seems to have been completed quite soon. Looking around the room, there only seem to be still some counts, some verifications of those going on in the Hillsey area and in Milton. Looking kind of around the room, you can see some of the candidates up against the back on the stage. But otherwise, that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, and I guess what we're waiting for next is during this process, somebody, usually I think it's the chief exec of Portsmouth City Council, will leap up on the stage, announce that verification is complete and counting will begin. So we have had one or two people come and say hello, and we've asked them what they've seen today. And I think it would be fair to say at the moment, particularly in certain wards, Simon, it looks like the count is up, and or the numbers are up and turnout looks better than it has been in recent times?
Yes, the reports that we've had from some of the campaigners involved from different parties are talking about in particular wards. The turnout is up by as much as 40%. We'll see how that comes out in the count. But if that's the case, then things might turn out to be a bit of a longer night than we'd anticipated. The plans from the council were that the first ward count would be announced at about 1 o'clock, and then the last one about 3. So it now being midnight, who knows?
Yeah, I think the original expectation is that the validation and verification would be done around midnight, and the counting would start soon after. So the fact that we're coming up on 1:15, that's still going on. I think we're probably 15-20 minutes behind where we expected to be. So I'm sure all of you out there are fueled by caffeine and sugar. We've got a massive bag of snacks with us. I guess it's important, Simon, when we look at what will happen at tonight's election. We know that this campaign has been fought on a mixture of local and national issues. I think it wouldn't be spoilers to call it early that at the moment the Lib Dems are running the council as a minority administration. I don't think we're expecting that to change unless a miracle happens. Would that be fair?
No, I don't think. I don't think that's numerically possible. The interesting thing will be, it depends how badly a night Labour have, as to whether as to how that goes, and essentially how many other parties are left, and whether they would be likely not to support a Lib Dem minority administration if that's the situation, which has been the situation since 2018.
Yeah, and I think it would be fair to say that Reform are expected to have a good night. How good is probably the moot point. I think most of the smart money has them somewhere around the sort of somewhere between 6 and 10 wards. I think 10 would probably they'd be delighted with 10. I think 6 they'd probably be a little bit unders on where they expected. The Conservatives defending 2 seats. I think one they might be confident on, one less so. I think it's really in the south of the city where I think we had our most uncertainty on, would Labour hang on to some of their seats down there? Would it turn out to be a good night for the Lib Dems? And I guess one of the great questions is nationally, the Greens have been doing very well. But I think it would be fair to say that, locally they've struggled to make a double-digit percentage. And I don't think we're picking up any intel that says that they might swoop in for a surprise win in any of the wards tonight.
We're now about to commence the counting stage for Cosham Ward. Turnout for Cosham Ward was 44%.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. So that's about to start the count for Cosham. That comment there, Coastal Beast is saying when would you say 40%? So how we understood it, as people were explaining it to us, is that essentially the turnout was nearly half as much again as was in previous years. So we shall obviously see how that works out, and whether that turns out to be the case. Just trying to have a look at Cosham, if there's 45%, is that what they said?
I heard 40%, so 40%. It's definitely over 40, but I think Cosham last time out, from memory, was mid to late 20s.
So 2024, it was 30%.
Right.
So from 21, from 21, 22 and 23, it was 34%, 33%, 29%, and then 30%. So a 10 percentage point jump. So it's gone up by a quarter. If that's the case, that shows just how hard the contest was in that ward. The interesting thing to see as we get more indication from other wards is whether that augurs well or badly for the rest of the city. But I think Cosham will be a interesting one to hear the result from. As to how that all translate to what happens to the Reform vote, what's happening to the Labour vote?
Yeah, I think the only complexity I think with Cosham, and luckily it's a ward we both know a lot about, is that the Conservative candidate that was declared was found that because they worked for a subsidiary of Portsmouth City Council, they couldn't stand. So there is no Conservative councillor, or there was no Conservative candidate in Cosham. So I think there was an assumption that those votes would probably end up heading towards reform. So this one is currently held by Labour. Councillor Asghar Shah has been there representing the ward. It was expected to be a two-horse race between Labour and Reform. We've just got another announcement coming through. Oh my word.
48.6%.
Yep, so that was Eastney and Craneswater, so the first one down in the south, currently held by the Lib Dems and Matt Winnington. Probably one that I think we both tipped Matt to win, but that is an enormous turnout. Eastney and Craneswater has always had a very decent turnout, but I don't think
Ladies
it's
and gentlemen, we're now about to start counting the stage for Drayton and Farlington. Turnout is 49.6%.
Drayton and Farlington been announced, the count is starting there, and that was 49.6%. Now, Drayton and Farlington has historically had a very high turnout, and that there is reckoned to be a straight fight between Simon Bosher, group leader for the Conservatives, and Reform. So we will, I think last year was the closest that Drayton and Farlington had ever come to not returning a Conservative councillor. So I think that one is going to be very interesting to see how the vote goes.
Yeah, and just for context, the Drayton and Farlington, the turnout 21, 22, 23 and 24, this is just the locals, by the way, not the general, was 38%, 35%, 33% and then 35%.
Wow. So it looks like for both Cosham and for Drayton and Farlington, the turnout is up by about a third compared to the last few years.
Eastney and Craneswater, again, the same years, 45%, 42, 39 and 38%.
So that one's been falling over the last few years, but is back up to nearly 50%.
Yeah.
And I guess this is the thing that we're not sure about. We know that Reform have got a very strong voter base, and does the high turnout represent them getting their voters out? Well, we know there's been quite a lot of noise around tactical voting, and is that people coming out possibly to try and stop Reform? I guess we'll know in about an hour's time, Simon.
Yeah, indeed. That as they start that counting process, has that pulled out the vote on one side or another, or has it pulled out the vote across the board? Only time will tell.
So we're going to sign off briefly now. Obviously, the count is underway. We've given you as much as we know now. Hopefully, people, some of the candidates and campaigners might come and join us during the night, but we will give it a little bit of time, and then hopefully the results will start to come thick and fast inside the next hour.
Yeah, and when we say sign off, we mean we're still going to be here. We're just going to step away from the mics for a second, comb our hair, get ourselves ready for a long night. But do keep coming with the questions that you've got there for us, and we'll look forward to bringing you more of the information as it comes. Those have been the only three that have said so far what the turnout is. Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay.
Back in a minute,
guys.
Wow.
Okay, so
did the little power pack need to go somewhere?
That's not looking good. Okay, so so we're back. Apologies for the wait there. We see the count in full swing in Central Southsea and in Cotner and in Horsham, Drayton and Farlington, and in Baffins, and St Thomas, and Milton, Charles Dickens, and wherever that is over there. So it's well underway. Should we saw?
Right. Can you hear me loud and clear there, Simon?
You're still muted your end. Just press the thing on the bottom. Yeah,
right, so I've pressed the thing on the bottom and I'm
Yeah.
back. So we've had our first report in from one of our roving reporters over in Havant, and I think it would be fair to say not an especially happy camper.
No?
Well, seeing a very similar pattern to Portsmouth in terms of turnout, but at the moment, just looking at box counts, their belief is that Havant, at the moment, looks like all 12 wards are going to be taken by reform. And as our chap is a sitting Green councillor, obviously it is not his best night out so far.
Yeah.
Interesting if we just focus on Havant for a little bit of time. Obviously, 12 wards over in Havant, a Conservative in each one of them, a Reform candidate, but Labour, the Lib Dems and the Greens only fielded 4 candidates each. So I know sometimes I think Havant branded itself as a kind of rainbow alliance, but
Yeah.
it may look like there is not a pot of gold at the end of this particular rainbow.
Indeed, will be interesting to see how that comes out when that's officially declared. And as we get more information, but it seems that seems to be a bit of the underlying theme going along. Will the numbers bear that out? Let's see.
Yeah, no, we've had a couple of unofficial off-the-record chats, and at the moment, the turnout that we've seen early appears to be replicated in most of the wards that have opened and started counting so far. And I think in terms of who it's going to be a good night for at the moment, I think one thing we can say is that the Labour team is not feeling especially positive about the potential outcome for, is it 4 or 5 they've got up tonight?
5, isn't it?
Yeah, and there is a fear from the camp at the moment that national politics may have come to bear, and Mr. Starmer's lack of popularity is going to end up costing all of those 5 councillors their seat. But long way to go yet, so we don't want to declare the end of the line too soon. But that's what we're seeing from the early indications coming our way.
Yeah. So let us know as you're following what your thoughts are, and what you think about the high turnout figures that we've heard about tonight, and how you're expecting those to go. It'll be. I mean, if they're keeping to time, which I can't see that they're going to get their first direct declaration in for 1, because that's only 10 minutes away.
No, and I think, as I said, I thought we were about 15, 20 minutes behind. And if they had planned based on the counts that they were expecting, I think they were expecting the first one inside an hour. And I guess if there's 30% more ballots to count, then it's going to take an hour and 20. So if I was and again, you're probably not allowed to bet on such things, but I think we'll probably see our first result between 1:30 and 1:45. So a little bit of a way to wait yet. Obviously, you've got the comments there. If anybody who's watching along wants to chip in, ask us any questions. We cover a wide range of topics. I'm not great on film, Simon's not great on sport, but we'll answer your questions if we can.
So just to kind of describe the scene, we didn't catch the. Thank you, Debbie. We didn't catch the turnout for Charles Dickens. Apologies, that looks like that happened while we were away. We'll see what the turnout looks like in the full result when that's declared. That'll have that figure here. But the message across the city is that it is the turnout up. But as you're quite right, Charles Dickens is quite a is usually the lowest turnout in the city. I think in 2024 it was under 20%.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I picked up that Fratton was 36%, and I think Fratton is usually closer. I would say, I think historically has usually been closer to 20 than 30. So, again, another good turnout there.
Just trying to see whether the. Oh, oh, okay, no, they haven't got the. Yeah, they haven't got the. I was just checking to see on the website whether there was. Whether the turnout
live
figures.
Scoring.
Yeah, unfortunately not. It's still. So what will be happening now is that each of the areas there's a section on each of the in the groups as to different wards, and the ballots for that ward will be being counted and put into different piles for each candidate, and then those piles get bundled into kind of, I think it's groups of 50, and then essentially the count is, you can then count up and tally once all of the ballots have actually been apportioned to the correct pile, how many ballots that there are, and that's usually the point where the returning officer will have a discussion with all of the candidates to see whether they accept that conclusion, and to agree on the decision about any spoiled ballots as to whether any of them should be excluded, or whether they indeed indicate a mark that should be counted as a vote.
Yes, so the tradition is to put an X in the box. I think if you draw anything more colourful or free-form in your nature, that is, of course, your democratic right, but it is unlikely that your vote will be counted at this point. So I guess with the count in full swing, we might pause for a moment, get a little bit of caffeine on board, and we will come back to you and let you know as soon as anything interesting happens.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk through the previous results.
Yeah,
if we want.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah,
we can do that.
If you needed to stock up, then.
No. Malnourishment. For those who have followed me will know that I am one step ahead of the Grim Reaper in that regard. So, yeah. In terms of what have we got so far then?
So just to looking at there are 42 wards in Portsmouth, and in each of the wards there are 3 councillors, and there are 14 different wards. Sorry, there are 42 councillors, 14 wards. Each ward has 3 councillors. This year we've got 1 councillor in each ward up for election, and essentially in every ward this year, the incumbent has basically restood. So there was no one kind of stepping down. So there was only people that were not the incumbent, that were perhaps some of them were first-time candidates, some of them were experienced candidates. And just to show that when you look at kind of Baffins, I think we talked about the turnout figures earlier on. We didn't capture the turnout figures as they were announced to say what they are. We'll pick them up actually with the declaration. But you can see in Baffins quite a consistent and steady Lib Dem lead against any of the other parties there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there in Central Southsea.
Just going back to Baffins,
Yeah.
there was the councillor who's up for re-election is currently the deputy mayor.
Kadir, yeah.
Kadir was a little reel on the evening news that was taken early, and he was saying that, again reinforcing that message that turnout was up, but expressing some concern that the election was being fought on national issues rather than local. So perhaps a note of caution there from Kadir about the potential outcome in Baffins.
Interesting view. Yeah, we can. I can't quite make out the chart from my screen, but essentially you can quite clearly see there with Central Southsea, two of the councillors there are Labour, and one of them is Lib Dem, Susie Gorton. The two that are Labour are Charlotte Gerrada and George Fielding. George Fielding is the one up for re-election this year. So we'll see what happens there. Charles Dickens. Now, as we were saying earlier on, the lowest turnout in any ward in the city in 2024. The turnout was under 15%. But over the last 4 years, with varying levels of degree of success, the only party making a consistent result there, being of the major parties, you've got Labour, but then of course there's the independent Cal Corkery, who was re-elected last time he was re-standing. So all to play for there. Will the incumbent Yinka Adeniran suffer from the national picture that Ian was talking about just now? Will another party push through, especially if the turnout is still quite low, or will that just completely change the picture if the turnout in Charles Dickens is higher than it normally is? What difference will that make? Because on a low turnout, it's obviously very easy to actually turn the ward around.
Yeah, and this is one where I think in one of our pre-election shows, this was one where I think I offered a bit of electoral strategy to the Greens. I felt that, with Labour's unpopularity, a relatively low turnout, quite a high student population, it felt that this was a ward that if the Greens would have truly targeted, this was probably, I felt, their best chance to maybe pull off a shock. And they put in one of their strongest candidates, Elliot Lee, a friend of the pod, who's been on a number of times, was the Green candidate for Charles Dickens, but not picking anything up on this. Obviously, I think in the early running, Alana Fudge, who ended up running in Cosham for Reform, looked like they were going to be the Reform candidate for Charles Dickens. So something changed there. I think this is one where you always think there could be a shock. Has been sort of traditionally Labour-led for probably the last, back to 2014-15, where I think it had a brief dalliance with UKIP. So possibly this could be a place where Reform might look to cause an upset in the south.
Indeed, a close one to watch, but possibly a lot of expectation. That's quite a natural place for them to land their message, maybe.
Yeah, I think I think there is always, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. There's always a belief that Reform gets all of its voters from Conservatives, and I know that's where they've seen some of their high-profile defectors come and join them. But I've never ascribed to the fact that the Reform message only lands with those on the right of politics. So we'll see how that's borne out tonight. And I guess that leads us to Cosham.
Copner,
I forgot Copner, where we've seen a very high turnout at 40%. This one, I guess, Simon, historically was a Conservative stronghold until Pip came in and has eaten away at Copner and is now 2/3 what was Pip. Those Pip people have now become Reform. And, Ben, hard-working local councillor, again, has been a friend of the podcast, looking to hold off Reform, turning that 3 from 3.
Yeah, so we'll see how that one goes. But you can see there on the chart on the screen, those of you following live, and please do share the link to the stream to anyone else you feel that's interested in wants to follow along and take part. It would be really great for them to have the opportunity to hear what's happening kind of blow by blow as each bit of news kind of comes in. But yeah, you can see on the chart there the successful insurgence from what was then the Portsmouth Independence Party in Copner, and then all of them eventually going over to following George Madgwick over to Reform earlier in the year. So after Copner, then we got Cosham.
Yeah, and again touched on Cosham, high turnout. Realistically, a 2-horse race with no Conservative candidate. I don't think the Lib Dems or the Greens have any aspirations for Cosham. So it's red versus turquoise, and yeah, I think if I listen to the, shall we say, the lack of optimism from the Labour camp, I think you would be unwise to bet against Reform in Cosham.
We shall see how that one goes. Interesting there, obviously, with like you're saying, without the Conservative candidate, what a difference that will make. But we shall find out in due course. Drayton and Farlington then, historically it was a ward where effectively the joke was that essentially the Conservatives weighed their votes in Drayton and Farlington, and they've still got. Well, at this point, they've got all 3 councillors. We'll see, obviously, after today. But up for re-election this year is the Conservative group leader, Simon Bosher. So it'll be quite a coup if he's ousted.
From the counting stage now commence for Hillsey Ward, and at 41.8%.
So yeah, we just
jump
heard,
to Hillsey.
Yeah, we just heard there that Hillsey is beginning counting, so that should be one of the later wards. 41% turnout there, Simon, and that feels like that's following a similar pattern up a bit on recent years.
Yeah, 2024 it was 27.
So not as much of a jump as we've seen in the other wards. Only up by about 5%, where most of the other wards are up by 10. So maybe Hillsey, which has been effectively whatever colour Pip was, now has 3 Reform councillors, has been that way for a number of years. And I think you would be very unwise against betting against Russell Simpson retaining his seat for Hillsey.
Yeah, we've he's he quite strongly and quite understandably chided us for underestimating him last time he was up, and yeah, I don't think it's going to be I don't think anybody will be betting against a return for Russell. Basically, just from his presence and strength as a councillor, but also obviously that seems to be the way the wave is going anyway. He's riding the right wave, if you pardon the pun.
Which I guess means we now need to, if my knowledge of the alphabet is right, we bounce back to Eastney and Craneswater.
Yeah, let's pick back up to our alphabetical order. So E and C, interesting one. So up until obviously today, all 3 councillors are Liberal Democrat. Up for re-election, Matt Winnington. Will there be a strong presence from Reform? PIP were third place in 2024. In ENC, the turnout was 38% in 2024. We shall see, but there's usually.
And that one was 48% this time around.
Oh, okay. So
yeah. So again, the other thing with ENC is I think when we started doing this all those years ago, 7 years ago now, Simon, that was the bluest or the second bluest of all the blue wards, where I think all three at one point were Conservative councillors back in the days of Luke Stubb et al. So has been a yellow stronghold, and I think if Reform were to unseat Matt there, I think that would come as a fairly significant shock.
Yeah, but the other thing, looking at kind of the history there, is over the last couple of years, Labour have got closer to the Lib Dem vote there. But if the national picture is to be understood, translated into ENC, it won't be the Labour Party chasing at the Lib Dems' tails in ENC. Will it be Reform?
Yeah, and I guess it depends where those Labour voters go, or whether they just stay home. So, which I think brings us on to the most fascinating of all wards, Fratton.
Yeah, sorry, my screen froze there. Yeah, so Fratton.
Now, obviously, Fratton is one of those mixed bags. The incumbent councillor Tom Coles, former Lord Mayor, a big character, seems to enjoy his politics, puts himself into it wholeheartedly. Jacob Short, the Reform candidate, has been, very active. Joined us at the start of his political career as a PIP candidate, and has definitely put the shoe miles in. And the Lib Dem candidate, Billy.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention,
Ansel.
please? I'm reducing doubtful adjudication papers at the stage for Charles Dickens Ward. So can I have candidates and agents only? No more candidates and agents for Charles Dickens Ward, please.
Okay, so that's them wanting the candidates to decide what papers to exclude because they've not been completed correctly, or usually they've got some sort of identifying marking on them, or they've got some sort of insult written on them.
There's regularly a cock and balls, isn't there? Let's be honest. It's not uncommon for that to be the motif of choice. And I guess, that seems to imply, Simon, usually that's only done when the count is complete. So
normally that would be the case. It would be at the end of things, but will that be the case here?
Well, I guess there is a piece where Charles Dickens, with the lower turnout, will have one of the smaller numbers of votes to be counted. So it could feasibly be that we could see our first result incoming, hopefully in the next 10-15 minutes.
Well,
let's hope for Debbie's sake, who's been a supporter of the podcast and regular contributor. I know is passionate about Charles Dickens, that she might be the first person who gets to sign off and go to bed early tonight.
Yes, I saw in the comments that that she was pleased to hear about the turnout being so high. There are a couple of questions. We see one from Callum. Do you think the majority of this extra votes in this election are for Reform or for others? Well, that's the critical thing.
Yeah.
Once we get our first couple of results, we'll know the answer to that question. But that is the $64 million question at the moment: is there a strong turnout across the board, or is there a strong turnout in one particular party?
Yeah, and I don't think we would be unreasonable if we said that Reform have got a very motivated and mobilised. They've engaged a new group of politically engaged people, and there was also a very strong move against Reform. So yeah, we will. We until that first count comes in, the argument is whether a high turnout is good for reform or good for everybody else. We will only know when that first result is read out. And again, even then, we are. I'm not sure we'll be certain if Charles Dickens does come first. Even with that result, we won't know whether that's been a good result for reform or a bad result for Labour. I think we'll have to wait till one or two more come through.
Yeah, I mean, that indeed, I think that's it, that's nailed it, really. It could, of course, be both things. But yeah, that's the critical thing. I think once we get the first couple, we'll get a flavour of how probably the rest of the night's going to pan out.
Yeah, so back to our friends in Fratton. I think Fratton could be could be very close. It could be a 3-horse race. It's been a mixture of Labour and Lib Dem. Obviously, Jacob Short has put in a lot of time and effort over the last 3 years to build his personal brand. So that's what I'm particularly looking forward to in terms of the result for that.
Yes, I think that one would be a close one. Will Tomballs suffer from the national picture? But who will get the benefit of that? Will that be reform in the guise of Jacob Short, or will that be Billy Ansell in the Lib Dems?
Right, my geography is now failing me, or possibly my knowledge of the alphabet.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to adjudicate doubtful ballot papers for Drayton and Farlington ward. Centre front stage, please.
So Drayton and Farlington there. The agents and candidates have been called forward to adjudicate the creative artwork of certain voters. So again, it is all starting to gather pace. I love it when it starts getting like this. Let's see whether we can get through the rest of the list. After Fratton comes...
well, we've already done Hilsey.
We've done Hilsey, skip Hilsey.
So Milton?
Milton. Oh, big name here. Big name. So Steve Pitt, current council leader, is the incumbent. Milton has always been the absolute doyen of the jewel in the Lib Dems crown. Paula Ann Savage, I think a couple of years ago, ran them a little bit closer when she was standing for Labour. She has switched allegiances to Green, obviously has been very active in the Aquint campaign, which we've covered extensively on the podcast. So there was always that kind of fear of, would Paula's local brand, local kind of, her brand awareness or whatever you want to describe it, would that take votes away from Steve? Would that take votes away from local Labour? Again, I think most of the smart money would seem to think that Steve is likely to retain that one. I've only passed him very briefly and said hello, but he didn't seem anything like as unhappy as the Labour folk we've spoken to. So
yes, so we've been asked about the turnout for comment, or is that an old comment? Sorry, I'm just trying to. Oh no, that is a current comment.
Well over 40%. I don't think we caught the exact number because we both had our headphones on, and so things were a little bit muffled. But we spoke to a candidate earlier who said there have been well over 4,000 votes cast in Copner. And it was felt that was one of Reform's key targets. And I think if you were a gambling person, I think the smart money would be on Ben Swan not retaining.
To do the adjudication of doubtful papers for Eastleigh and Craigswater, but have candidates and agents only at the stage, please. Thank you.
So again, it's time to have the Tony Hart moment and mark the artwork of the disillusioned for Eastleigh and Craigswater. So yeah, we will answer the Copner question. We've done Milton.
Yeah, sorry. So we
Paulsgrove.
So after Milton,
Nelson. Again,
so Nelson. historically a Lib Dem stronghold. You can see there from the charts there. However, Jason Fazakerley defected from the Lib Dems. Who's up for re-election this year? So jumped from the Lib Dems to Reform this year. So will his voter base move with him to Reform, or will they not? Voters sometimes take a particular view to defections kind of mid-term, but sometimes if the personal vote is strong enough, they take the candidate takes those voters with them.
And this is one where I think it would be fair to say this one has been fiercely fought. And I think the Lib Dems would be very keen to have the monopoly moment and go back to having a full set of three. But obviously, Jason being the sitting candidate, and I guess Reform would be keen to keep him. So I guess if the Lib Dems win that one, that would make it a Lib Dem gain, wouldn't it?
Well, sociologically speaking, you go from when the last when it was elected, so it wouldn't be a Lib Dem gain; it would be a Lib Dem hold,
But,
even though the colour, the rosette of the candidate of the councillor is changing as to what it was on May the 6th.
Yeah. No, we'll let's see whether that happens. We'll have to deal with that afterwards.
But yeah, the thing to watch there in Nelson, it was a particularly tough battle in 2024, where a strong attack from Pip. So how much of that Pip support translates to Reform? How much of Jason Fazakerley's support follows him to Reform? That's the key questions in Nelson, and we'll find out in due course.
So that moves us neatly on to Paulsgrove.
Yes.
Doesn't take long to talk about Paulsgrove.
No.
Joe, leader of Reform in Portsmouth, is going to win this by an absolute landslide. So we don't really need to talk much more about that. Only elected 6 months ago, following Brian Madgwick stepping down, which was the start of the whole end of the Pip. And yes, I think we don't need to say too much more about that one.
St Jude.
Oh, I always get confused by St Jude and St Thomas. Tell me what's going on in St Jude at the moment.
So St Jude is also one where there's two Labour and one Lib Dem. In 2024, it was Hugh Mason re-elected. Up for re-election this time, there is Labour's Judith Smythe. So there's a tussle essentially between them. Everyone else is in a distant position in St Jude historically. Will a Reform insurgents make headway there, or would it be more of a natural ground for the Greens to make some headway, perhaps taking some of the Labour vote? Who can tell? We'll find out when they announce.
Yeah, and I know it was very, very close for Hugh last time. I think when we spoke to him at the count in 24, he was not feeling entirely optimistic that he'd get over the line. So, but I think that was, back in 2024, where Labour was, getting ready to romp to victory nationally. So, yeah, you get your predictions for free and what they're worth. I think this one would. I think this one is going to be a Lib Dem gain, which brings us on to St Thomas, last but by no means least.
So strong Lib Dem fortress there, and we have a George Madgwick walking towards us.
Oh,
hello, George. How are you doing? Let me just get you a mic. That was a tired slump into a seat there.
Oh. Well, the word from Havant, George, is that it's all done and dusted over there.
Is it? That's good.
So, well, it would be for our green representative in Havant isn't feeling quite as chipper as yourself about
I don't think they're working, but that was.
No.
Oh, you're a bit hot. Yeah, we got you. Can you not hear him?
I can't, but I can hear, not through the headphones. But how is it, George? And if we had to pin you down early on how many seats you think you might get this evening?
Honestly, we're going to win between 6 and 10.
Well, that's where our predictions were at the start of the show. So I feel almost validated by that.
Yeah, it literally is going to be between that. We've won 6. I'm not going to tell you which 6 yet, but we've won 6. And we are within 1-3% of another 4. So it's close.
Very close.
So
Very close.
We've had some questions around the high turnout. Do you think the high turnout has favoured reform, or?
I think it is for the opposition parties in the sense of Green and Reform. I think Green are going to have a really good night tonight. They're not going to win anything. They won't win anything. But I think you're going to see a lot of second and third places from them. A really, really good showing. They've done really well in some areas. So I think a lot of people have come out to vote Green. A lot of people come out to vote Reform, and that's why we're going to get some really close results tonight.
One of our questions coming in was, what do you think's behind it? What do you think's driving that?
I think, look, at the end of the day, people are tired of the main two, aren't they? As in Conservatives and Labour. I don't even know if you can call them the main two anymore, but the main two. And I think that what we're going to see tonight, it wouldn't surprise me, and don't quote me on this just yet, although I'm talking on a podcast, but don't quote me, but I think we could see an entire wipeout of Labour and Conservatives tonight. And I think that the spoils are going to be shared between Reform and the Liberals. And I think that's a real big statement for the city. We could go down to having 2 Conservatives in the city, and what would it be? 4 or 5 Labour, which would be shocking, really. I mean, really shocking. After so many years of such a strong Labour and Conservative presence.
And I guess one of the big questions about the election was how much of it was going to be kind of one on national issues and how much was going to be one on local issues. Do you see a lot of the voting this evening as being more about sending a message nationally?
Yeah, see, this is what upsets me, because as you know, as an independent like myself, initially, I really believe local elections should be about local issues, and it's something that I personally struggle with a little bit because, you've known me for years. I'm a real local focused person, and this year it's been really a national run thing. I mean, and I think all parties have been kind of campaigning slightly on a national issue, including ourselves, our own party. But that's all people cared about. I mean, when we started running on the kind of Get Kia Out campaign or whatever it was, I thought, let's see if this works or not. And then within a week, that's all we were hearing at doors. And I was like, oh my God, it's actually working really well. And to such extent that we started seeing Liberal Democrats put Keir Starmer out on their literature. So they took it as well. So, I do think this is kind of, this election, unfortunately, has been kind of more of a vote on Keir's leadership, to be completely honest with you, rather than local issues, which I think is a real shame, by the way. I think it's a real shame because I would prefer a local election to be run on pure local issues.
Yeah, I think, obviously there's a lot of reform literature came through my front door, even despite the fact that it probably wasn't as welcome as you might think. But that was almost entirely focused on national issues. Is that something that you see going forward as being the way if Reform is the largest second party in Portsmouth? Is that something that you're going to stick with, or is there going to be more of a focus of emphasis on local issues?
I think in Caution we did 6 flyers in total, and I think 3 of them were national and 3 of them were local. We try to keep our final letter as a local letter, which was purely just about the candidate, and our initial letter or initial flyer was just about the candidate as well. But it's a balancing act. As I say, I've been independent for 4 or 5 years. So for me, it's like a culture shock, really, because, all of a sudden, you can't do the things that you've usually got the freedom to do. And all of a sudden you're told, and I guess the other national parties are used to this, but you're kind of almost told, this is how you got to do this, this is how you got to do that. But it's been really interesting. It's been different. And we'll see how the political climate goes. But I think we can all agree that, unfortunately, this whole national stuff at the moment is overtaking everything. And back in the day, people used to talk about potholes or local government organisation. Let's put this in perspective. 9 months ago, all we heard about on doors of local government organisation. I haven't heard that this week. Not once.
Really?
Not once.
That's interesting, considering obviously this election is if LGR goes ahead, there's still the chance that someone might wake up and smell the coffee and just, hopefully, but I don't think it's going to happen. But if it goes ahead, these are the last elections for Portsmouth as a unitary authority.
Yeah, I know, and it's but as I said to you, this is what this big campaign was on. This is what everyone was speaking about 6, 7, 8 months ago. And all of a sudden, honestly, I'm not joking you, not a person. We knocked, well, I personally, I wouldn't talk on behalf of others, but I personally knocked 1,000 doors in the last 7, 8 days, and not a singular mention of local government reorganisation, not a single one. It was about Keir Starmer, it was about Labour, it was about anything but local government reorganisation. But I can guarantee you everyone's going to care next year.
And I guess if we can just draw you a little bit across the border into Havant, the word we're getting from Havant is that all 12 wards are going to return a reform councillor. Any thoughts or commentary on the way that the election's gone over in Havant?
I mean, if we take 12 seats, all 12 seats, or if we take 11 or 10 or 9 or 8, I'd be so happy, because what I really disliked was Liberals, Labour and Greens getting together, divvying up 4 seats each to try and keep reform out. And I don't like that. I didn't like it when it happened in the Boris Johnson when he won the election. I don't like all that stuff. I think people should have the freedom to vote for whoever they want to, and I think people should be on the ballot paper. I'm never a fan of standing down for people. It's not the right thing to do, and I think that it would be good for democracy if they were taught a lesson and reform 112. I'd be over the moon for Terry, Sharon, and the team over there, because they're really hard working, and I think they'd do a really good job. And obviously, I'm standing for county over there, so we'll see how that result goes. I'm off to Havant after this, actually.
Well, if the early reports are true, I think you might have won that one as well. Because
yeah, we'll see. Well, let's have a look at how Hampshire goes. We've got a lot of work to do over there. And I think the thing that interested me, because initially it kind of didn't grab my attention, as you guys know, I've been Portsmouth through and through, and I was kind of sold on the fact that Hampshire is reporting entirely different things to what Portsmouth City Council are reporting on our devolution. Entirely different things, entirely different figures, entirely different processes, entirely different everything. And someone said to me, well, wouldn't it be good to actually get in there as potential administration or in a coalition or whatever, and actually find out what the actual truth is, because both can't be right. Portsmouth can't be right, and Hampshire can't be right at the same time. One of them has got to be wrong. And it'd be really interesting to get in there and really get into that before we go to our local government organisation, because I think we need to know what's going on with our city before it gets divvied up and we get lumbered with debt.
Yeah.
And
true.
I guess if we look ahead, mayoral elections in 2 years' time, George?
Not for me, no. My dear Lord, no, not for me, not for me. I'll stay local. That's I'll let someone else do that. But yeah, no, not for me. Everyone mentions it. No, not for me. Do you know what? I've always said that I'd only do something if I felt I could do a good job at it. And I'm not saying I couldn't do a good job as mayor, but I think that your heart's got to be in it. But then again, 2 years is a long time, right? I mean, right now, I just want to look after local politics, and then we'll see what happens and what comes up from there. But a week's a long time in politics. 2 years is a lot longer.
Absolutely. And it's probably felt a very long week the last week.
Yeah, it has. But anyway, guys, I'm going to head off. But thanks very much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Cheers. We've gone.
Well, I guess we should make a quick introduction there. So George was formerly leader of Portsmouth Independence Party, was the first to move across to Reform, and stepped down as leader of the Portsmouth Group probably about 6 months ago. But obviously, as you can hear there, George is intimately involved in the running of all things Reform locally.
Yes. Yeah, interesting to hear him talking about wanting to stay local. I mean, that was, of course, obviously part of the big thing about the Portsmouth Independence Party was that they were a local rather than a national party. So it was interesting to kind of hear that and kind of listen to that. But yeah, it sounds like they may well be riding the wave tonight. And we'll see kind of what happens. The other thing, obviously, to consider in next year's elections, although they'll be for the new the South East Hampshire or local authority, which would be Portsmouth, Gosport, Havant, Fareham, Waterlooville, and there's a couple of wards from East Hampshire, I think, joining in for good measure. Those councillors essentially that we're electing next year won't actually take control of that authority. That authority doesn't come into existence until 2028. So it sounds a lot more dramatic than it really is. But they'll essentially form a shadow council for a year to basically get their ducks in a row and kind of try to sort things out with regards to LGR and see kind of what's happening there.
Yeah, I still think there's an awful lot of water to be kind of that needs to bridge with that, because I think even as much as the new local authority, we almost have no idea how many councillors are going to be in that authority. I think when we did the sums, if you just moved everybody across, it would be a council chamber of 130, which frankly is unworkable. The Portsmouth City Council meetings go off long enough with 42. If you treble that number, how that becomes a functioning council, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it will be a difficult one. I'm getting some reports in the chat that you seem to have lost the signal on the Facebook Live. Trying to see if I can recover that, but that doesn't seem to be working at the moment.
Nelson Ward for adjudication of doubtful ballot papers by the steps at the front of the stage.
So we're seeing adjudication on Nelson Ward. So they're kind of making some definite progress here.
Well, they are, but usually I would have expected to see the Charles Dickens. Usually you get a shout of the result about 15 minutes after the adjudication of the spoiled ballots. So I don't know whether they're saving them up to have a run of them all at once, but yeah, it does feel like we are making progress. I think there's 6 or 7 wards where the agents and candidates have been called up for the spoiled ballots. But it'll be interesting, because if George is correct that the counts are that tight in 2 or 3 of them, we could see that going to a recount.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a couple where it's going to get close to the wire, where a recount's going to be needed.
So I guess as we've got a little bit of time to fill, and again with our person over in Havant, what do you make if the results are as we think they are? That if Reform have swept the board, then do you think the exercise in attempting to rainbow coalitionise the candidates has backfired spectacularly?
Well, it sounds like it may well have done. The critical thing will be whether voters remember that next year, and when they're voting up for all up, they consider that, well, hang on, do they consider that those parties essentially did a deal behind closed doors and robbed them of the opportunity to vote for who they wanted to? I mean, it's an interesting thing, because on one hand, obviously with first past the post, if you have essentially you're splitting the progressive vote across 3 different parties, then they're never going to win against the more conservative vote. However, voters seem to have wisened up to the idea of tactical voting in recent years. So really, I guess the question there is, who are parties to make that decision on voters' behalf? Surely it's the voters. At the end of the day, it's the voter's boss.
Yeah, and interestingly, again, our man in Havant is also foretelling a wipeout of Labour over there. That effectively they and in terms of the coalition that runs Havant at the moment, Labour would no longer be the biggest party in the coalition. So it would be quite a seismic change over in Havant if it pans out like we think it will.
Yes, and has that just played into the hands of essentially achieves the opposite of what it tried to do? I mean, we should say the parties in Havant said that they struggled to find all of the candidates. It just seems a bit of a coincidence that they couldn't find candidates that two parties couldn't find candidates in 3 wards where one party could, and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, they said there was no collusion, there was no, it was just by lucky chance. And if I'm honest with you, Simon, I've said this online, and I mean it as forcefully now as I did then. You know, there's an old saying which is "Don't wee on my leg and tell me it's raining," and I think there was I think that was a massively arrogant. You know, if they would have actually put their hands up and said, "This is what we're doing," I think they might have got more respect for that than, you know, the previous election. They had each managed to put up 12 candidates in each of the 12 wards. So to ask the electorate to believe that they could only find 4, and by lucky chance, you know, they were in each of the 4 wards where the other team couldn't find anyone, I thought was, I thought smacked of arrogance.
Well, it would be incredible if that were the case, wouldn't it? In the sense of what would the chances be?
So yeah, I think our prediction was we hoped for the first result between 1:30 and 1:45, which was my revised schedule. So it's getting tight now. But I think we just heard Baffin's called up to check the spoiled ballots.
Yeah, sorry.
Was that you?
Yeah, it was me. It was me trying to put a comment on the stream on Facebook, because we've lost the link to Facebook for some reason.
Facebook. But people can still watch us on YouTube.
Yes, on YouTube and on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
So, although the comment seems to have gone through to Facebook now, so I don't know whether it's now picked it back up again.
We're back. So hopefully wherever you're watching or listening, our voices are keeping you wide awake. I've deployed my first round of Haribo, and that's obviously helped. Simon's still looking perky. His adrenaline levels always stay high because he's responsible for all the technology, and when it all goes horribly wrong, that's
I'm also responsible for trying to find a way to make it work. Yeah.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Kozil Beast was saying, so for Havant you talk about collusion, but was it that the parties just didn't put any? That's correct. They didn't stand candidates. So between Labour, the Lib Dems, and the Greens, essentially in a third of the ward.
Candidates and agents for Cosham Ward for provisional results.
Ooh.
Over here in the left-hand corner of the stage. That's candidates and agents for Cosham Ward.
Okay, provisional candidate assessment for provisional result of Cosham. Just coming up. Yeah, so there's a fair kind of debate to be had about is a party standing a paper candidate, and by which that's someone that's on the ballot but doesn't do any campaigning. Is that just as bad, or is that worse? Sorry, than not standing someone? That's an interesting point as to how voters kind of feel about that. Do they feel that it's for the parties to make that decision and essentially only stand candidates in wards that they're going to actively campaign in? That's a point. That's certainly a point of view.
Yeah, and I think there is always this issue with local campaigning, isn't there? We see it, and we've seen it on some of our Facebook groups. I only got leaflets from this many parties and nobody knocked my door. And I think there is that piece where, when you look across, the number of people who are politically active in the city, I think people will be surprised just how few folk there are who are prepared to go out door knocking, canvassing, delivering leaflets. So there is that element of, there is that balance between, some of the national parties will always field a candidate in every ward, but it is literally getting somebody to lend their name to the ballot paper, and there will be zero effort put in by that party to try and win any votes.
Yeah. And I think there's also the kind of theory is if Party A doesn't stand, will all of their voters go and vote for Party B, or will some of them just stay home? Will that mean that Party C wins kind of anyway? At the end of the day, the electorate, quite rightly, don't do as they're told.
No, and I think there is that. Sometimes there is this naivety, isn't there? That you know, if you were strongly aligned with, you know, Sir Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and their brand of Labour at the moment, would you naturally go and vote for a Green candidate if that was the only option you were given, with no Labour person on the ballot paper? I don't think that's an assumption you can make. In the same way as there's a lot of assumptions sometimes that the Reform and Conservative vote is interchangeable. I think we all know of, you know, some Conservatives who would never vote Reform, and some Reform members who would never have anything to do with the Conservatives.
Yeah, indeed, it's really, really interesting. But I guess that's also an artifact of our electoral system. In first past the post, most of the political parties are essentially kind of quite wide internal coalitions of differing views within that party. Different electoral systems don't need to coalesce around a particular rosette in order to have some sort, in order to stand any chance of gaining any form of political power. It's long been the argument for PR that would be the case, and we've often talked about how some people are in one party, but you can't quite honestly see how they're in that party rather than another party. It's a curious thing. But it's a very, very interesting point there, Kozel Beast, about actually, should we require that actually you only stand candidates in wards that you're actually going to actively compete in, so that you're actually fighting for the voters' ballot? It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and hopefully we are going to see the Caution result come through fairly soon. So at this point we are poised, and again it all starts to get moving from here fairly quickly. As soon as the first one's announced, we then tend to charge on for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, they come in. Once they start, they usually come in quite rapid succession. The only kind of break in that you get is in any particular wards where they're contested, where the result is actually too close, and therefore the candidates are asking for a recount. We can see someone picking up a wireless microphone.
Candidates and agents, please, for St Jude Ward to adjudicate doubtful ballot papers onto the stage. Please.
We were so optimistic there that was the first result coming through.
But the hint for the first result will be them gathering on the stage.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So them having a provisional result, that's the returning officer putting that in front of the candidates and essentially seeing whether they're happy to accept that, or indeed at that point actually ask for a recount. And there are two different types of recount. There's a full recount, where essentially you reprocess all of the ballots again. You skip the validation stage, you don't need to do that again, but essentially you put them back into the piles. You essentially kind of recount one by one each. The other ones is a bundle count. Essentially you recount how many bundles there are and how many odds that there are. The difference there is obviously the former is takes a lot more time, and the latter can be a problem if, for example, the ballot on the top of the bundle is for one candidate, but all the others are actually for a different candidate, and therefore the count is wrong.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. So is that kind of, there's still some counting going on in Central South, so as we kind of look across, over in the far side, I'd have to check my map, to my kind of handy reckoner as to who's in what's, and there's Still some stuff kind of going on with the counts with the ballots in Hilsey. But yeah, there's no activity in Cosham.
Cosham's done and dusted,
Yeah,
isn't it? So,
yeah. So I think it's we're just waiting for that that declaration.
shall we pause for a few minutes and then jump back in as soon as anything starts to happen?
We can, yeah. Well, let me kind of mute for a second. Let me just.
We go.
The announcement of results, please.
Here
on
we
the
go.
Stage.
Let's go back live.
Okay. The
And we're
announcement
back.
of the
Here we
Cosham
come.
result.
Cosham coming through. It's our local arrangements. We think we know which way it's going to go. Let's remain quiet and poised. And just to recap, in case you weren't with us earlier, this was expected to be a two-horse race between Shah, the standing Labour councillor, and Alara Fudge, who is the Reform candidate. There was no Conservative candidate in Cosham, and a place where the Lib Dems and the Greens, it would be fair to say, have not always fielded their strongest side. Although they might have done once, Simon.
Okay. The declaration for the result of poll for City Councillor for Cosham Ward by Natalie Barama-Pearl, being the returning officer of this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this said election is as follows. Alexandra Darcy de Olivier Martins, commonly known as Alex de Olivier Martins, the Green Party candidate, 425 votes.
That is a very strong showing for the Greens. Greens usually get about 100 votes in Cosham, so 400.
Lamara Louise Fudge, Reform UK candidate, 1,881 votes. Asker Shah, the Labour Party candidate, 1,747 votes.
Wow, so less than 100 votes.
And Timothy Charles Suffolk, Liberal Democrat candidate, 374 votes.
So that's
A number of 20 ballot papers were rejected from the process for doubtful papers. The turnout was 44.05%. Therefore, I do hereby declare that Lamara Louise Fudge is to be elected to Cosham Ward.
okay. So Green 425, Reform 1,881, Labour 1,747, and Lib Dem 374. So Green's overtaking Lib Dems in Cosham.
Yeah, I mean, the Lib Dems, I would expect, I thought they would get more. I mean, if I'm honest with you, Simon, I thought that might have been, you know, we flip-flopped. I think it was one we disagreed on as to whether Shah would retain it or whether Reform would nick it. Obviously, Reform last time out, well, in the guise of PIP, won. I can't say I'm surprised, but yeah, quite hard for Shah, as although neither Simon and I are politically aligned with Shah, he has been a very strong, hard-working councillor for the people of Cosham.
Yes. So also, I think it's Lamara's first time standing.
Yeah, as I say, Lamara was early in the piece. Looked like she was going to stand in Charles Dickens, and so I was quite surprised when I saw her as the Cosham candidate, as had been quite active in Charles Dickens. But I'm sure delighted with that outcome, and we will wait and see whether any of the candidates come our way. But
Yeah.
again, if we can skip back to the 2024. Obviously a much higher turnout, but it looks like Shah's vote, you know, Labour's vote has held up in Cosham, although there has been a big swing towards Reform.
Indeed, quite a swing there. But also, I mean, as you say, there wasn't. What was it? 1881 versus 1747.
Yeah, 140 votes. And you know, again, whilst we wouldn't want to, as we've said, there is never direct transference. I think we said when we saw there was no Conservative candidate that was not going to help Shah. I think that could have been the difference between between winning and losing.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, you can't you don't know precisely how voters, how voters from previous parties voted, but it's hard to imagine that that those that would have voted Conservative either all stayed at home or all went went for Shah. So I think it would have.
The candidates and agents only for the adjudication of doubtful papers for Fratton.
Adjudication doubtful papers for Fratton.
So yeah, we have seen our first result. And I think the other thing, and this is where it takes me back to the general election night, and when Penny Mordaunt lost her seat, her first line was that democracy is never wrong.
No.
But I do see parallels in that, if you look at that result, I think Reform got 8,000 votes, which was more than they expected. And had they have, had a chunk of those stayed with Penny, then she would have retained her seat as MP. Smaller numbers, but of those 400 and odd votes for the Greens, if 150 of those would have stayed with with Shah, then he would have retained his seat.
Yeah, it's not many, but if that's Cosham, what does that all go for the rest of the season? Just want to pick up a question that we've got from Leroy, which was asking us what are our thoughts about people standing in wards that they don't live in. What are your? I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think the challenge always, Leroy, is finding the people who are prepared to stand and do the work. And obviously, Lamara has been elected as a councillor now, and I think often there is misinformation about the role of the councillor and what they get paid. I think people often mistake an MP's salary for a councillor's expenses. And, I think there is that piece where if you look at the amount of potential online abuse that councillors get, I think it's often very difficult to find somebody local who's prepared to stand and do the job.
See, there's an interesting kind of thing with regards to to be eligible to stand in a ward, you need to either live, work, or own property in the borough or the authority that ward sits in. So, for example, in a parliamentary election, that means as long as you live, work, or own property in the UK, then you're fine. You don't have to live in the constituency. With regard to councils, though, a lot of hay is quite often made by different parties about candidates, depending on whether it's their candidate that doesn't live in the ward or actually someone else's candidate. And when it's someone else's candidate that lives outside the ward, they really hate the idea. When it's their candidate that lives outside the ward, they don't seem to be quite so bothered. So I can see how it can be more helpful to have a constant understanding of what's going on in the ward, to actually live in the ward, or indeed work in the ward, to be someone treading those streets and seeing the things that voters are experiencing. But I don't think you have to live there to do that.
Attention, please. Can I have the candidates and agents only for St Jude's ward for provisional results over there in the left-hand side of the stage? That's candidates and agents for St Jude's ward provisional results.
So we've just heard the announcement there that provisional results for St Jude's, but I don't think we're going to get too excited because I think from memory there was about a 40-minute gap between the provisional results for Cosham and the folks being called onto stage, but that could have been because the margin was only 100 and something votes.
Yeah, we shall see. It's as we say, now they've started coming in. They've started coming in, so we'll be bringing you more results as we hear them. But let us know what your thoughts are. I was just gonna get the graphic of of the result into the stream. So I think you can see there actually the results there. It's yeah, very close. So 42% to Reform, 39% to Labour. So in Cosham, so more to come. But yeah, the other interesting thing there, yes, the Greens had a very good night in Cosham.
Yes, no, I think they'll be delighted with that. I think they're going to have a bearing in a number of wards, because they are, they are proving more popular nationally. And would it be fair to say that they, I mean, I guess the interesting piece will be not in Cosham because there are never enough of them, but are they going to be taking some of their, will they be taking their votes only from Labour, or will they be taking some from the Lib Dems as well?
Yeah, we shall. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out in the wards where the Lib Dems are the incumbents. But so far, Portsmouth seems to be following what seems to be a bit of a national picture, which is the Reform are having a good night. I see Rave Princess, thank you. So saying Labour have lost 61 seats, Cons 10 so far. Reform have picked up 74. So yeah, they're definitely having a good night. Is that you? No, that's
Difficult for me to say.
yeah.
Like that? Perfect.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? Can I have the candidates and agents for provisional results for St Thomas Ward over in the left-hand corner or corner, depending on how you look at this page, but over there. That's candidates and agents for St Thomas Ward.
So for those of you still listening along, it's a little bit of a lull. We've been, I think St Thomas have been called forward for a provisional result. But at the moment there is very little going on, so rather than me just burbling on, I will sit here quietly contemplating everything I see before me, and as soon as we've got any more results, we'll be back to give an update. Marvellous. Simon has returned. I can update him that absolutely nothing has happened in the interim, and so we will continue to sit here quietly.
Candidates and agencies for Cotton Award for the adjudication of doubtful ballot papers. Front of the stage, got us next, please.
So just looking at, have you got the details there for Cosham Ward in 24? I'm just interested to know whether Labour's vote share went up or down.
Yeah, let me just grab it. Just a second. Oh, sorry, I've lost a cable. So the vote share 1747. Sorry, just getting that up on.
No, this is always very entertaining for me to give you complex mathematical problems on the fly and see how that unfolds as we go through the night.
So in 2024, so Cosham, the vote share was 33% in 2024 in the locals.
So I think in terms of the share of the vote, Labour's vote share has actually gone up.
Yes. Yeah. So in 2024, the Labour candidate was Amanda Martin, who's now the MP for Portsmouth North, with Pitt getting 38% of the vote share, and the Conservatives getting 21% of the vote share. the Lib Dems 4%, Greens 3%. The Greens were only 18 votes behind the Lib Dems. Obviously, no Conservative on the ballot this time, as we were saying earlier on. But yeah, 140 votes in it in May in 2024,
and 140 votes this year.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention, please. Can I have the candidates and agents for Milton Ward provisional results over in the left-hand corner, your right-hand corner, looking at the stage. That's candidates and agents for provisional results.
That's provisional results for Milton. So I think that gives us 3 queued up now.
Yeah.
St Jude, St Thomas, and Milton have all been called forward for provisional results, but we've yet to hear another announcement.
Okay, well, we shall see. Sorry, I've just dropped my pen.
This is a disaster.
And you're trying to write something down. I've muted myself.
So just to give you the full ambience of what's going on, Simon is now crawling about in the ramped seats that we have at the back of the Guildhall.
In the VIP zone.
The VIP zone. Desperately trying to search for his pen.
I have pen.
He's got the pen. He's back.
I have pen. So yeah, that's quite a thing. So is that? I don't think there's anywhere else in the city where that sort of result for the Greens is going to deliver them a seat.
But this is the again, back to my very brief 3 minutes of being the electoral agent for the Greens, which was never going to happen. It is that element of they spread themselves too thin. They've got a really good result there in Cosham, in a place where,
Can I just check whether Melinda Collar, the Conservative Party candidate for Milton Ward, is here, please?
Oh.
And if so, to come corner for provisional results.
Okay, so it sounds like the returning officer calling for the Conservative candidate in Milton, whether they're actually here. Candidates don't have to turn up to the count.
No. And to be fair, the Conservative was never going to win in Milton. So as we spoke about earlier about paper candidates, this would definitely be a case of somebody whose name was on the ballot paper but never expected to win. And I doubt whether a single leaflet was delivered with a blue torch on it in Milton.
Yeah. I mean, either so the battle was elsewhere with Milton, wasn't it? And the Conservatives certainly had different places to marshal their troops. As reduced as they've been, they're defending two wards of the 4 councillors that they've got, which is when you think that at one point, before 2018, they were running the council. And obviously we had, the beginning of the end for the Conservatives was the rise of George and Pitt, because when we look at the majority, or in fact, I think almost all Pitt councillors came from ex-Conservative strongholds, and gradually that's the kind of way it's gone. And I guess, it will be one of the acid tests for reform today, when it will be, can they win a seat in the south of the city? Yes, that would be certainly a breakthrough for them.
But we've just had a message come through. We've got as well as having a green chum in Havant, we've got a Liberal Democrat over there as well. And unfortunately, they are equally as despondent as our green chum over there, saying that Havant has turned turquoise. We were hoping to have somebody from either Fareham or Gosport, but no message coming in for those, because again, very similar in Gosport in terms of, a lot of Lib Dem, been a very successful borough council for the Lib Dems. Reform would have done well in Gosport, but they are, we'll have to see whether they I've seen similar
Can I have
games.
candidates and agents, please, for Hilsey Walker, please, to adjudicate doubtful ballot papers, please, front stage by the steps.
Okay. Those of you who are still actually watching your screens will have noticed that a couple of moments ago I turned the camera off of mirror. I realised suddenly it's around the wrong way. So my apologies that you've been looking through the mirror darkly, perhaps, or looking through the what do they call it? Is it not
They've been looking at your bald head rather than the.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, thankfully, not pointing at us. But and sorry, the question there. Another great question there from Cozy Beast or Kozo Beast. Sorry, I'm not quite sure on the pronunciation. So my understanding is that the people actually working in the count, they are paid
Yes.
rather than volunteers. Obviously, all of the political people, the candidates, etc., they're not being paid unless they've got some sort of paid role with the party.
And interesting that Portsmouth is one of a diminishing number of councils that still counts overnight. When we look at the elections that are going on today, the Welsh Assembly elections and the Scottish Assembly, neither of those are starting until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And of, I think, the 5,000 council seats which were up for election in England today, only 1,300 of them will be decided overnight. The rest have kind of left it till tomorrow. And there's even talk that some of the counting will go into Saturday, which obviously from our perspective would be give us a much earlier night, but I'm not sure that we fancy going all the way to Saturday.
I'm definitely not up for doing a 36-hour stint of a count, but it's interesting whether that will change. Obviously, with the LGR thing, Portsmouth would, aside from losing Portsmouth as a unitary authority, we lose electing as. Will that still be elected in thirds, as in so out of 3 out of every 4 years, there's one candidate in each ward up for elections. Now, in other boroughs, actually, that are currently part of Hampshire County Council, there isn't always 3 councillors in each ward. Some wards have 2.
I think, I mean, this is the thing, and it's, the more we talk about local government reorganisation, the less we know. Because obviously, Portsmouth has traditionally been split into 14 wards. We don't know whether there was going to be boundary changes for those wards. That I think was scheduled to come in last year or even in 24, but they punted into the long grass because of local government reorganisation. I guess we talked about it earlier, the practicalities of having a council with 130 councillors on it. It's always going to be that balance, isn't it, around the practicalities.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? Can I have the candidates and agents for Central South Sea Ward for provisional results?
Okay, that's interesting. So Leroy, just making he's pointing out that it's a paid position working at the count, as well as actually those manning the staffing the polling stations, and an additional day's leave from a lot of them employers for employees who work on polling days, including PCC. So that's interesting. They also point out actually that the LGR would actually see. I didn't know that this was set yet. So interesting if that has been set. That the LGR will mean 2 councillors per ward. But you're quite right. That kind of speaks to what you were just saying, Ian. Is that it's going to be a massively unwieldy body to try and have that many. So surely one of the ways to deliver a saving in the cost of that democratic exercise is to reduce the number of councillors. But then does that diminish the level of representation people see?
Well, I think that's where the challenge comes, doesn't it? Because at the moment in Portsmouth, you've got 3 councillors per ward. And so it's roughly at the ratio, I think, of about 1 councillor for every 3,500 constituents.
Yeah.
And if you look at, because Portsmouth is a unitary authority, a basic councillor gets about £11,000 a year in expenses. Now, there is that piece where, when you start to look at that, at minimum wage, if we do those sums, that realistically buys you about 15 hours a week.
Yeah.
If we put it in those terms. And to be fair, you'd argue that, the work of a ward councillor is probably deserves to be remunerated a little bit higher than minimum wage. But if we follow that logic through, if at the moment there are 3 councillors taking care of a ward and that drops to 2, well, your representation then is 1 councillor for every 5,000 people. And I guess there is that element of, that's 50% more
Okay, ladies and
councillor
gentlemen, can I have your
work.
attention, please? Can I have the candidates and agents for Eastleigh Craneswater Ward on provisional results over here, this side of the stage?
So calling for provisional results for Eastleigh and Craneswater.
Eastleigh and Craneswater.
And again, this is very different to last year, because we had provisional results probably nearly an hour ago, and I think we've now had 5 or 6 wards with provisional results. And I kind of almost don't understand why, Cosham had the best part of 4,000 votes cast, so it wasn't a particularly small ward, but they seem to have got that through out and announced. And we haven't seen anything else come through. It almost feels like they're saving them up to do them in a big run, which is maybe great for them, but it's not ideal for us to provide witty and insightful analysis if they do them one after the other.
Yeah, but I guess it's a bit much for us to expect that they organise the count to suit us. I guess we just have to vamp for that little bit longer. But it's So Leroy goes on to say that the new constitution will be one of the things decided by the authority's shadow administration when they're appointed next year. So further update. Thank you, Rave Princess, saying Labour have lost 73 and Conservatives have lost 23. Reform are now at 102 seats.
Is this nationally?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. George is still here. He said to us earlier on that he would be needing to go elsewhere about 2. So obviously things are keeping him here.
Well, and perhaps it appears to be such a foregone conclusion in Havant, and there's still a bit of nip and tuck here that he's wanted to stay and hang around.
Yeah, there's but essentially there's no activity on any of the counting tables.
It does feel like the counting is done.
It's all over by the shouting, as they say.
And as you might imagine, we always hope that some of the campaigners or folks will come and talk to us. But unfortunately, what we find is that before the results are declared, most are either too anxious or don't want to jinx anything by coming to talk to us. And then afterwards, everyone's far too emotional, as I think we've said before. It is a very hard way to find out you've been fired in the very glare of the public spotlight, and often having done nothing wrong and just worked hard for your constituents for your 4 years.
Yeah, you thought The Apprentice was hard. It's the strangest re-interview process, but it's at the end of the day, as we said earlier on, and as Penny Mordaunt had said, the electorate can't be wrong. That's the democratic process. That's what happens. Sometimes the electorate choose someone else, and that's just the way it goes. Well, there's some people kind of standing up against the stage, but none of them seem to be particularly gathered
eager.
on a ward perspective.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
Oh.
can I have the candidates and agents for Charles Dickens Ward, please, for provisional results over here in the corners? That's
So over in the-
candidates and agents for Charles Dickens Ward, please.
So can anyone attend the count? So there's a limited number of people that can attend the count on behalf of each party. I think the candidate can bring a +1, and then the party overall will have a certain number of an extra couple of people, I think. Other than that, you can't. It's not actually generally open to the public. We're very grateful that that the council allow us to come and sit with the media guys, and actually bring you the stream from there. But no, it's not actually an event that's open to the public.
No, it's the one time a year where we're official. We're sat here with press passes dangling around our necks. We are considered to be genuine, actual political commentators for one night a year. So you know, and again, it is lovely that our friends at Portsmouth Democracy Services have always made us feel welcome, and we've got our little spot here at the back, overseeing everything that goes on, purely from a metaphorical standpoint, from my perspective. But yeah, it is. It's one of those things where this will be, I think, the fourth or fifth one we've done. It's often an emotional night. You know, we saw probably, I think in 24, you know, there was a lot of love from the Lib Dems and a lot of emotion. I'm sure we got speeches then, but obviously for the first caution one, Lamara didn't or wasn't invited to step forward and say anything. So
It's not like there wasn't time.
no. I mean, we've been going for a whole hour. She could have given a full rendition of a stage musical should she have chosen to. So yeah, we will continue to remain poised and
Always
yeah.
like a coiled zebra.
Yeah,
Literally,
yeah.
if we move, then that will be literally the moment that they decide to
Yeah.
start reeling them off in quick succession.
No, Simon ducked out a few minutes ago, and I was, as I said, left with a hot mic because I was expecting at that point a flurry of people to rush towards the stage. But as it stands at the moment, we are going to just pause for a moment, centre our zen. I think I might be needing another Diet Coke. It's been my third, just to keep the caffeine levels up. And this is another thing you've got to judge on, is you don't want to end up too amped up and then all of the results come through at once and you're trying to get to bed whilst still full of caffeine.
I've just seen the just looked like the candidates for Charles Dickens just came back into the hall.
Oh. Were they in a conga line?
Not quite, no. No one was dancing, and no one looked particularly very happy.
Candidates and agents for Fratton Ward, for provisional results, please, over here in the corner.
It's another
Candidates and agents for
provisional
Fratton
result
Ward.
being called forward, but no actual results as such.
It's an interesting point. The room does look emptier than before, but I think that's because there's not the activity at the counting tables, and also there are people off to the side of our shop that you can't see. They're actually sat in the seating, so it doesn't appear that. I mean, there may have been one or two people that have decided to call it a night for whatever reason, whether they already know the provisional result already or not. But we haven't noticed anybody not being here, obviously, other than what we mentioned regarding Milton earlier on.
Yeah, what you find is that at the start, when the validation is happening, when the counts are happening, each party are allowed a number of scrutineers who can walk the floor, looking at the count. So what you tend to find is that space in the middle is full of people, and then by this stage, the parties tend to congregate in little knots around the outside of the hall, and obviously you'll hear cheers and applause go up when eventually they start reading out some more results. And again, I think it's important at this point to remember just how grueling this whole process can be. We were talking with one of the candidates before we went live. They were out trying to mobilise voters and get them to cast their stones from sort of 7 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
Or they were out, I think they said, from 6 o'clock. They're still going strong now, and they've probably got another couple of hours before everything wraps up and everyone goes home.
Yeah, so it's well, unless things get really, really rapid, we're definitely not on track for finishing for 3 o'clock.
No, I'll be honest with you. I never thought we were going to be. As soon as we heard there was a high turnout, but I would have hoped by now we would have probably had 3 or 4 results through. But it does feel to me like they might be queuing them up to go one after the other, which is slightly frustrating from our perspective, but ultimately we're not in a position to influence the outcome.
No. He says opening a can.
No, apologies for that. I am about to go into a massive coughing fit, so...
Yeah, so here we are poised. I mean, generally, oh, someone picks up a microphone.
Yeah, we're probably getting quite jumpy now, aren't we?
Yeah, it's interesting. You see everybody's head turn the moment they see someone walking on the stage, or someone stepping out from behind the curtain on the stage, because that indicates that someone something's.
Please, can I have the candidates and agents for Portsmouth board for provisional results?
Now that's surprising. This late in the day for provisional results for Portsmouth.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes no sense because, you know, if any ward kind of, we knew what the result was before we walked in, it was Portsmouth.
So Kozelby's asking actually if there's been any recounts. We've not had any announced or any discussed, and there certainly hasn't been any sign of any activity of any recounts. I'll just kind of try and pan the camera around. Again, you can see that there's no activity and hasn't been for quite some time at any of the tables for any of the wards. So there certainly doesn't appear to be any sign. Must admit, we thought that maybe there might be some really close run races. Sorry, that's a bit pissed, isn't it? It's not. The camera's not straight. We'll have to deal with that. So yeah, we are waiting, and we are waiting just in the middle there of the shot. I don't know if you can see, if you can make it out. You've got and then now dispersing just as I'm discussing it. Several people from Reform. They're kind of moving off. We've seen Russell Simpson there.
It is very strange, though, isn't it, that they declared Cosham like so far ahead of everybody else, and then you know, because I can't remember when Cosham was declared, but it feels like it was more than an hour ago. So I can only presume that they've made some kind of decision just to queue them up and do the results one after the other.
Yeah, perhaps it's strange if the results were kind of that pending. No one, as I cast my eyes around the room, no one is looking. If someone was about to be announced, but trying to keep it to themselves, that they're about to be announced as the winner in any particular award, either they've got really good poker faces or they're just really tired. No one looks really that.
Please, can I have the candidates and agents for Nelson Ward, please, for provisional results?
Another provisional result,
Candidates and agents for Nelson Ward.
So
corner.
this is very,
I'm
very
trying
bizarre.
to mark off in my own mind which wards have not been called forward yet for provisional results.
Yes, that was unfortunately we've not kept a track of that, so my
No,
apologies.
because we were rather expecting that. I don't think we've heard Drayton and Farlington yet, and I don't think we've had Baffins. So I think there's still a couple of provisional results to come, but it does definitely feel like and again, you know, you don't want to be critical on a night like tonight because it is a complex logistical arrangement, but it would seem to have made more sense to me to, you know, move these on one at a time, and it would have definitely given us a better flow. I think we might have to give some feedback in terms of next year.
Well, our gracious thanks for them setting us up in our prime spot again, and for wheeling out a plug to us, which is really, really helpful. So it's, yeah. I can't remember them saying provisionals for Baffins or Copner. I remember them having adjudications, but
Yeah, I think we just remain poised.
We've not. One of the comments they're asking whether they've done it, whether they announced the majority. Not normally. Just normally tends to be the case that essentially once kind of the first wave, usually the wards with the smallest turnout obviously get counted first and get counted quickest and get their results out. And then while that's all being declared and dealt with, the others tend to kind of come in then kind of quick succession. But this, we've not seen it like this before. What was it? 2023 was our first year streaming from the count.
22. I'm sure we've done 4.
Yeah, but are we thinking of the GE because we did the GE and then the locals in 24?
No, I think we did 22, 23, 24, 24. But anyway, we've been here a few times, and it has never been like this. It is, as I say, usually you kind of have a lot of waiting until that first result is declared, and then what you tend to see is that where we've seen the candidates called up for adjudication of the spoiled ballots, provisional results. They all tend to sort of mix in with each other. And then I think once or twice, I think the first year we did it, there was one ward that was a kind of 20 minutes, half an hour later than all the rest. So by that stage, everybody really had gone home. And we were the last people as they were sweeping up and turning the lights out.
Yeah.
Can I have your attention, please? Can I have the candidates and agents for Copner, please? For provisional results.
Oh, there we go. Provisional result for Copner.
Yeah, and we
Over
still think there's a couple to. I still think there's a couple to go.
I'm just kind of curious as to if there's not been any activity for a good half an hour on the actual counting tables. Why? What's the delay between the count? The totaling up of those being finished and this conversation about the provisional result. I don't recall that being a thing before. It's very interesting.
Well, I think it's not very interesting. I think it's very dull, and it's that element of I'm frustrated now by the fact that we haven't got results to discuss, and we're going to end up with 13 to discuss, one after the other, probably with not much time to discuss in between. This is appalling for the democratic process. I'm indignant at this stage.
Okay. Have you tucked into your Tang Fastics or whatever?
I've had a few small bags of Haribo, and possibly that's where I'm going to have to meter that. Maybe I've gone one bag of Haribo too many.
Maybe that's what it is. While we do that, let's please, if you are watching on YouTube, please do remember to give us a subscribe. If you were watching us on Facebook earlier on, apologies that we've dropped the stream there. Unfortunately, we didn't seem to be able to do anything to get that back, despite trying. Please give us a follow there if that's your preference of where to interact with us. You can see from our website where to sign up for our newsletter. If you go to pppodcast.uk, then you can see that. So who have we got now walking in? So again, so Elliot Lee from the Greens, there's a Carl Inman from Reform.
Can I have the candidates and agents for Charles Dickens for, please?
Oh.
For the other recount figures.
Oh,
Oh,
so there was a recount.
there was a recount.
That's candidates and agents for Charles Dickens board.
Okay.
And usually they would have announced that.
Yeah. That's the strange thing.
Could the Greens have sprung a surprise in Charles Dickens?
I don't know. But we might try and nobble a lesser spotted Lib Dem that's sitting not a million miles away from us.
Have we got a friend of the pod adjacent?
Got kind of Toby hanging around. How are you doing, Toby?
Good, how are you?
Yeah. Okay, so you're
Yes.
you're back with us there. Sorry, we just trying to catch up and see what the kind of whisper behind the scenes was.
And it looks like all the results are now known, and we've been told St Thomas is about to be announced with St Jude not far behind. So remind us, because I always get them confused. St Thomas was Lib Dem.
Yeah, all three are Lib Dem.
Was St Jude Lib Dem?
No, one Lib Dem, two
Yes,
Labour.
yeah, no. So,
But the incumbent is
Oscar
Labour.
Zabicki still here. Okay.
So St Thomas, this is one I think we both predicted a Lib Dem hold here. So
Yes,
we'll see.
yeah, that was our prediction.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Can we just have
Okay,
some?
so the declaration for the result of poll for St Thomas Ward. I, Natalie Brommer Pearl, being the returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this said election is as follows. Thomas Martin Austin, commonly known as Tom Austin, Labour Party, 379.
Okay, so it's Labour 379.
Terence Christopher William Henderson, commonly known as Terry Henderson, Conservative Party candidate, 330.
330, so Labour ahead of the Conservatives.
That is a bit of a
Mark
shock.
Jeffrey, Liberal Democrat, 1,646.
1,646 for the Lib Dems.
Jonathan Edward Mercer, commonly known as Jade Mercer, the Green Party candidate, 666 votes.
Good grief.
The number of the beast there.
And Oscar Eugene Zabecki, Reform UK, 784.
Well, that is quite a result. That is the Lib Dems romping
A
home.
total of 9 ballot papers rejected, and the voter turnout reached 33.4%. And therefore, I hereby declare that Mark Jeffrey is duly elected to St Thomas.
Okay, so
Well, that is an incredible result, Simon. I guess we predicted a Lib Dem win, but I think the Greens there in
I'd just like
third
to very
place.
quickly thank all of the people involved in my campaign, Chris, Ian, Liz, all the people behind the scenes. We've had a really good campaign. I think we're going to have a really good night tonight in Portsmouth. And I'd also like to thank all the staff who have helped out. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the results. Thank you.
okay, so very, very strong. Just to go back over those again, so Labour with 379, Conservatives with 330, Lib Dems with 1,646, the Greens at 666, and Reform at 784.
So, as for the candidates for St Jude Ward, please.
And a turnout of 33.4%. So Lib Dems holding the seat, but Reform in second place,
Greens
Green
in
in third.
and the Labour vote in that ward has collapsed.
Yeah, but it was still above the Conservative vote.
Yeah, well, Conservatives never do anything in St Thomas, do they? It's
I mean, it didn't used to be the case. It used to be a three-way fight.
No, it's been a. But no, the Lib Dems will be delighted with the result. And on to St Jude, so held by Labour at the moment.
I, Natalie Brommer Pearl, the returning officer of this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each of the candidates at this election is as follows. Elvi Saeed Ishan Mahmood, the Green Party candidate, 636 votes.
636 votes for the Greens.
Michelle Newman, Reform UK, 670 votes.
So neck and neck, Reform and the Greens.
670 votes for Reform.
Denise Perry, Liberal Democrat, 1,650.
Oh my lord.
Lib Dems more than that's interesting. 1,654 to the Lib Dems.
Osolia Polokoi, Conservative Party candidate, 218 votes.
218 for the Conservatives.
And Judith Deborah Smythe, Labour Party, 795.
Good Lord.
795
So that is
for Labour.
So that is Councillor Judith Smythe, who is really there, is neck and neck with the Green and
The
the...
turnout was 43%. Therefore, I do hereby declare that Denise Curry is duly elected to St Jude's Ward.
So that is a Lib Dem gain, and by pretty much 1,000 votes, Simon.
Yeah, there's quite a stonking result.
Yeah, if you imagine, I'm a bit shell shocked. So I want to say thank you very much to all the residents of St Jude who voted for me. I also want to thank all the council officers today. You did a really great job, and a special mention to the St Jude team that did all the counting. You worked really hard. I'd also like to thank the Liberal Democrats team and volunteers who supported me all year. You've been absolutely fabulous. And finally, I'd just like to say that there's a lot of work to be done over the past 12 months, and I intend to hit the ground running, and I'm going to work really hard for all the residents of St Jude's Ward. So thank you very much.
Wow.
Well, that's
Well, that is a real collapse of the Labour vote in both of those wards.
Okay, can I have the candidates for Paulsgrove Ward, please, on the stage?
Now, this is the one where we expect Paulsgrove is being called forward, where, our belief on this one was that probably that Joe Standen was going to get more than
Paulsgrove, I
all
will
of
be
the
announcing
other
Milton if the candidates can make their way to
all
the
of the
front.
other kind of votes added together. So let's see whether this one goes the way we expect.
Are you still?
Am I still?
No, sorry, I just wanted to double check. Is the audio still coming through?
Yes, I'm poised. I was just waiting for the returning officer.
It's the declaration of polls for Paulsgrove Ward. I, Natalie Brommer-Pearl, being the returning officer of this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Mark Andrew Farewell, Labour Party, 347.
347 for Labour.
Thomas Christopher Hall, Local Conservatives, 467.
467 for Conservative.
Ian David McCulloch, the Green Party candidate, 315.
315 for the Greens.
Michelle Jenny Simmons, Liberal Democrat, 319.
319.
Joseph Michael Standen, commonly known as Joe Standen, Reform UK, 1,962.
1,962.
So, as predicted, Joe Standen gets more than all of the other candidates added together.
And therefore, I do hereby declare Joseph Michael Standen is duly elected to
So Joe Standen re-elected after being elected in a by-election in October?
First of all, I just want to say thank you to Natalie and all of the team here, all of the counters. You do an absolutely sterling job. Well done. Give yourself a pat on the back. I want to say thank you to my amazing Reform UK Portsmouth team. You've been absolutely brilliant this campaign. Well done. And most of all, I want to thank the residents of Paulsgrove, Port Solent and Wimmering for re-electing me. You're absolutely brilliant, and I will continue to work tirelessly for you over the next couple of years for the remainder of Portsmouth City Council. Thank you very much.
So that's 2 to Reform, 2 to the Liberal Democrats. 2 all draw at the
Can I
moment.
have the candidates for Milton Ward, please, on the stage?
And this was the one where we thought that Steve Pitt, the leader of Portsmouth City Council, would retain his seat. We expected a strong showing from the Greens. So let's see how this one pans out. I guess thoughts there, Simon, of the three results we've heard so far. I guess shock really at the margin of victory in St Jude is probably the one that's raising an eyebrow for me at the moment.
I think, yeah, that's an interesting.
The Green candidate, Paul Savage, here.
That was always the potential, is that the denting, because of the national image on the Labour vote, would allow the Lib Dems to come through, unless Reform were going to have made a shock.
But I think for me,
campaign there, but
we thought it would. I think when we looked at it, we thought it would be close. We didn't see a 1,000-vote win in St Jude.
No.
You know, that's
massive.
It's the margin of victory which I think is so significant there. I mean, let's face it, Joe Standen, we expected for Paulsgrove, Port Solent, and Wimmering. He was, you know, that was the home and hosed vote of all. That was the easiest to predict of any of the wards.
Yeah.
Right. So the declaration of the result of poll for Milton Ward. I, Natalie Brommer-Pearl, as the returning officer of this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each of the candidates of this election is as follows. Perry Barter, Independent, 34 votes. Philip James Carpenter, commonly known as Phil Carpenter, Reform UK, 1,273 votes. Melinda Collar, Conservative Party candidate, 203 votes. Stephen Mark Christopher Pitt, commonly known as Steve Pitt, Liberal Democrat, 2,230.
Wow.
Paul Savage, the Green Party candidate, 779 votes. David Richard Trace, Labour Party, 367 votes.
Wow. So in Milton,
there were a total of 9 ballot papers rejected, and the turnout for Milton was 45.8%. Therefore,
wow.
I do hereby declare that Stephen Mark Christopher Pitt is duly elected as the candidate for Milton Ward.
Okay, so just to go back through that, so Independent 34, Reform 1,273, Conservative 203, Lib Dems 2,233.
I just want to thank everyone from the council staff who've been worked so hard tonight, really efficient working, and it's really late, and we know that you all just have to get off to bed. But thank you for all your work, and to Natalie and the election services team as well. And thank you to the other candidates in the campaign. It's not actually an election if it's a coronation if there's only one person, so you need a contest, and we've certainly had one in Milton. As you will all know, it's many of you who have taken interest in local politics. It's been extremely difficult last 12 months for me personally, and the best way to be motivated to continue to deliver for the residents of Portsmouth, and in particular the residents of Milton Ward, is to get a ringing endorsement for the work that you've done. I am absolutely thrilled to have such support from our local community, the community where I live and have done for the last 30 years. I'm passionate about it. I can't wait to get that leisure centre built.
So
we never take support of residents lightly. It doesn't matter where you are in the city, whether you voted for us or not. Lib Dems work hard across our communities, year in, year out, relentlessly trying to make this city a better place and take Portsmouth forward. We're going to keep doing that with increased numbers now, and the main thing we have to concentrate on, and we're going to have to work cross-party on this, is we're going to have to try to get the message across to this Labour government that they have to keep their hands off Portsmouth.
Okay.
Steve, the pit bull rearing, fighting form as always. But again, I mean, great numbers for Reform in a place where they've never done anything. but still 1,000 vote win for Steve. That
Can I
is,
ask the candidates for Central South Sea Ward,
it's-
please, to join me on stage?
it's starting to look
That
like
will
it could be
followed by Eastern Cranes
Liberal
Ward to
Democrats'
get
night,
yourselves into
Simon.
position.
It is indeed. Are they in danger of getting enough to take control? They've been in no overall control, but been running a council in no overall control since 2018. So we shall see.
And we've just had a message from Havant that they have
The
not yet
declaration
finished their
of results for
validation.
Central South Sea Ward.
Oh, good grief.
I, Natalie Bromhill,
Okay.
the returning officer for this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate in this election is as follows. Kaki Mohammed Azadaman, Reform UK, 661 votes.
661 to reform.
Lucy Bridgewater, the Green Party candidate, 978 votes.
978.
That's
The
a
Green.
huge result for the
That's a
Greens.
huge result then.
Mackenzie Remy Lynch Cumming, commonly known as Mackenzie Cumming, Conservative Party candidate, 195 votes.
195 for Conservatives.
Catherine Ann Dorrington, commonly known as Kate Dorrington, Liberal Democrat, 1,996 votes.
Is that 1996?
Yep, 196 something.
George David Fielding, Labour Party, 856
Wow,
votes.
good lord. So another Lib Dem game.
9 ballot papers rejected and the turnout was 38.9%. Therefore, I do hereby declare that Catherine Ann Dorrington, commonly known as Kate Dorrington, is duly elected to the ward of Central South.
Okay, so Lib Dem game for Central South.
Well, if you look at those numbers, the Labour vote has collapsed again, and massive result for the Greens. The Greens in second.
I'll keep it short. Yes, thank you to everyone who voted for me. The fantastic Lib Dem team who supported me all the way through, but most of all, my husband, been my absolute rock. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Well, this is
Well, that's 4-2 to the Lib Dems.
Okay, move on to Eastern Cranes Ward. If I can have the candidates on stage, please.
So Eastney, Matthew Winnington, and you'd think with the way this has been going tonight, this should be a Lib Dem hold.
Mm.
Okay. The declaration of results for the Eastney and Cranes Water Ward. I, Natalie Bromhill, as the returning officer of this above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. John Malcolm Hill, Reform UK, 1,117 votes. Alison Jane Hall, the Conservative Party candidate, 551 votes. Patrick Charles Keith, Labour Party, 472 votes.
so Labour even behind Conservatives.
Yep.
Clifford George Parsons, commonly known as Cliff Parsons, Heritage Party, 23 votes. Elizabeth Sophie Rose, commonly known as Lizzie Rose, the Green Party candidate, 619 votes.
619.
Greens more than the Conservatives and the Labour Party.
Yeah.
Matthew Ray Winnington, Liberal Democrat, 1,900 votes.
1,900 for the Lib Dems. So Lib Dem hold.
Lib Dems hold with a majority of about 800. Again, good numbers for Reform.
8 ballots rejected and the turnout was 48.6%. Therefore, I do hereby declare that Matthew Ray Winnington is duly elected to Eastney and Cranes Water Ward.
I'd like to thank all the council staff who have made this such a smooth process today. I've done this a few times before now, and it's always done in such a fantastic way. I'd like to thank my fantastic Lib Dem team. Over the years, there's been some ups and downs, but this is a massive up. This is the biggest majority in Eastern Queenswell towards outside of general election year ever. And it's something I'm incredibly proud of the people of Eastern Queenswell, of their faith in me to such a great extent. I'd like to thank my wife, Tricia. She can't be here tonight, but she means the world to me. And it really is a great honour to be her husband and to be able to do all of this. This is the last election to Portsmouth City Council, unless the government listens to the people of this city. The people of this city, 82% have said, hands up Portsmouth, leave us on our own and don't put us into massive debt. It's a real crisis for this city, and I hope that now, with what looks like a Liberal Democrat majority on this council, we can take this forward and everyone can get behind that message, and we can save our services and manage our city in the way that we see fit for our own people, no matter where we are, from Paulsgrove to Eastleigh, from Old Portsmouth to Drayton Farms. Thank you again, and it's a good night.
Well, Matthew Willington hinting that could the Liberal Democrats do the other? I mean, they'd need to win.
Nelson Ward, followed by Charles Dickens Ward.
I mean, I think they'd need to win another 3. Nelson.
The candidates for Nelson Ward, please, on the stage.
Well, it looks like an incredible night.
Yeah.
Are you doing the macro totals? Because I've got lost now. I think they need to win another 3. And I'm not sure where they would come from. Fratton,
So I've
Nelson.
got currently, so on the current results so far, plus the other wards the other seats that weren't up for contention, my sums make it the Lib Dems at 19, Labour at 4,
Yeah, so they
Conservative
need
at 2, Reform 9.
They need another 3.
Independent 1. Yes.
Let's see how they get on with else.
Okay, so if we can move to the declaration of results for Nelson Ward. I, Natalie Grommer, being the returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Stephen Paul Andrews, commonly known as Steve Andrews, Liberal Democrat, 1,499.
This could be close.
Jason Fazackley, Reform UK,
Thank you.
1,350 votes.
So Stephen Fazackley jumped ship, lost his seat.
Lewis Mark David Gosling, Local Conservatives, 168 votes. Robin Head, Labour Party, 281 votes. Stanley Bryan, Ian Moss, Stan Marlow, Liberal Party candidate, 347 votes. And the total number of ballots rejected were 3, and the turnout 35.7%. Therefore, I hereby declare that Stephen Paul Andrews, commonly known as Steve Andrews, is duly elected to the Nelson Ward.
Well, that's the closest so far, just 100 votes in it.
Well, what can I say? It was a bit of a surprise for me. I'd like to say thanks to everyone out there counting. I was absolutely amazed at what you're doing, how quick you go through it. I think that is crazy. But most of all, the Liberal Democrat people putting your faith in me. And even more so, Nelson putting their faith in me, a newbie to the scene, never been in politics. And I am very nervous, if I'm honest. So thank you all, and everyone else, thank you very much. Well done.
Taking out the candidates, Charles Dickens Ward, please, on the stage.
Well, that's one of the 3 over the line. And I think that would have been a ward that Reform targeted to keep Jason Fazackley on their team.
I mean, was that even part of the motivation of the move?
Yes. Yeah, that is a it's one that I think.
For the declaration of Charles Dickens Ward, in the returning officer of this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Osedi Oliyenka Adrian, Labour Party, 697 votes. David Michael Chandler, the Conservative Party candidate, 154 votes. Samuel Charles Copeland, commonly known as Sam Copeland, Reform UK, 993 votes. Elliot Lee, the Green Party candidate, 562 votes.
Wow. 562 for Greens.
And Declan McGregor Sims, commonly known as Harold McGregor Sims, Liberal Democrat, 906 votes.
906 votes for the Lib Dems, so.
Okay, a total of 8 ballots were rejected and the turnout was 23.2%. Therefore, I hereby declare that Samuel Charles Copeland, commonly known as Sam Copeland, is duly elected to the Charles Dickens Ward.
Well, a win for Reform in Charles Dickens, which a couple of hundred votes a second of winning it.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, wait, morning. Yeah, wow, what a night it's been. Yeah, so before I thank everyone and the cat, I just want to appreciate all the staff. And such a good job, really amazed me. I want to thank my team over there. So thank you for putting up with my newbie questions. And obviously the returning officer, thank you very much. Let me first, I just want to give glory to Jesus. Thank you for his salvation for mankind. I want to also thank you deeply for George and Joe and Russell for believing in me and kind of taking a risk. I'm really thankful for them and the team. You know, I'm really thankful for my wife and my children for sacrificing this time at short notice. They've been an incredible support for this time. And I just want to take a little moment, just a little moment, won't take too much time, but a little moment to appreciate the fact that, you know, our ward is one of the most unrepresented wards in the whole city. We have a turnout lower than any other, but year on year on year. And we were very blessed with some wonderful candidates this year. Especially, I want to just pick out Harold, who's incredible work with community events and local outreach. He's done a great job. And I want to appreciate Yinka, who has invested in very underrepresented communities in my ward. And yeah, women and other communities. We're so blessed, and it could have gone to any one of us, and I would have been happy. It's my ward, I live there. I stood on the policies or the commitments to build trust, to empower people, and to represent in the council. And that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Okay, so Fratton Ward next, followed by Cochrane Ward. So the candidates for Fratton, please.
Well, I think that Reform will be very happy at winning Charles Dickens again, but much closer than I think any of us expected. And again, Yinka will be very disappointed to have finished third in the eventual outcome.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. So yeah, Reform first, Lib Dems second, then and Labour, but Greens I can't remember where they were last time, to 562. So it's quite the battle.
Declaration of results for Fratton Ward.
Here we go with Fratton.
I, Natalie Brommer Pearl, being the returning officer for this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Billy John Ansell, commonly known as Billy Ansell, Liberal Democrat, 1,518 votes. Thomas Patrick Harold Coles, commonly known as Tom Coles, Labour Party, 454 votes.
Wow. Oh my word. 454 for incumbent Tom Coles.
Timothy Francis Edwards, commonly known as Tim Edwards, Conservative Party candidate, 186 votes.
106 for the Conservatives.
Tim Sherman Chase, the Green Party candidate, 542 votes.
542.
Jacob Lee Short, Reform UK, 1,162 votes.
It's another Lib Dem win.
The total number of ballot papers rejected were 8, and the turnout was 36.2%. Therefore, I do hereby declare that Billy Joe Ansell, commonly known as Billy Ansell, is duly elected to Fratton Ward.
So another Lib Dem game.
I think that takes the Lib Dems to 21.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks to all the staff that have made tonight possible and everything runs smoothly. Thanks to my fantastic Lib Dem team. We are now majority on the council now, is that right? Yeah.
I think you might have gone too soon.
Most importantly, I'd actually like to thank a fantastic ward councillor, a brilliant former mayor, and all-round stand-up geezer, Tom Coles. So another round of applause for him. Thank you very much. Cheers.
So it's Baffins. If the Lib Dems retain Baffins, they will cross the line with 22.
So I've got them at 20.
Okay, can I have the candidates for the Copland Award, please, on the stage?
Now, obviously, this was a ward that Reform targeted very strongly.
Okay, the declaration of result for Copland Award. I, Natalie Brommer Pearl, being returning officer at this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate in this election is as follows. Andrew Charles Butterworth, commonly known as Andy Butterworth, Labour Party, 478 votes. Tamara Liluti Barbara Grown, commonly known as Tamara Grown, the Green Party candidate, 520 votes. Carl Inman, Reform UK, 1,616 votes. Paul Anthony Oakley, Liberal Democrat, 500 votes. Benedict Joseph Swan, commonly known as Ben Swan, local Conservatives, 1,095 votes. And there were a total of 10 ballot papers rejected, and the turnout was 43.6%.
Therefore, I do hereby declare that Carl Inman is duly elected to Copner Ward. Congratulations.
So that will be, Ben will take that very hard after 8 years of service.
I'll keep this really brief, I promise, because it's really late now. Natalie, thank you and your teams for a fantastic job well done, not just here at the camp, but also at polling stations. Thank you to my opponents as well. Campaigning is hard work, and polling day especially is a very long day, so thank you to them as well. I just want to say thank you to my reform team. Thank you for the support you've given me over the last few weeks. You've been amazing. And finally, I just want to thank the people of Copner and Anchorage Park for trusting me and voting for me. Thank you very much.
I need to get some more, so just
So thoughts on that result, Simon?
Yeah, that was quite a serious result there. So yeah, I was trying to do the sums in my head, but my brain is gone.
No, majority of about 600. I think there is that. I mean, the trend. I mean, when we look at this, it has not been a good night for the Conservatives. If you look at their vote across the city, you know, is collapsing down to that sort of 100, 200 figure. Obviously, Ben polling 1,000 votes there, but
everybody, there are 3 more provisional results to run through with candidates. So I won't be back on the stage for a few more minutes. So if I could ask the candidates and agents for Drayton and Farlington Ward to see me over here, and we'll go through the provisional results, please. Thank you.
We've got 3 results to come: Drayton and Farlington, Baffins and Hilsey, I think.
Yes. So on my ready reckoner, that makes Lib Dems at 21, Labour at 4, Conservatives at 2, Reform at 11, Independent at 1, with the 3 outstanding.
So I guess at the moment, the winners and losers on the night, we were expecting Reform to be the big winners, but I think I'd argue that at the moment, I'd argue at the moment that the Lib Dems look the bigger winners of the 2. The Conservatives are definitely on the losing side of the agenda. Labour obviously have had a nightmare. So I think is that all of their candidates wiped? It is all of their councillors that stood for re-election have been wiped out. And I guess the Greens are somewhere in the middle in that they've had a better night, but they've won nothing.
No. I don't know, we've often talked about how perhaps actually, if they put all of their firepower into one ward, whether they'd have a different result. I mean, this year, of all of the years, this was possibly a year where they had an opportunity to break through. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're not going to get, by the look of it, a Green councillor on Portsmouth City Council before Portsmouth City Council stops being Portsmouth City Council.
No, and you know, again, even though the numbers are good, you look at somewhere like Charles Dickens, where you know Elliot Lee polled over 500 votes, but you know he still would have needed to double his vote to get up alongside Reform and the Lib Dems, who were there with about with the best part of 1,000 each. So.
So just quickly to recap, just for those listening, just in case you're kind of dipping in and out or there's been issues with the audio. So we're still waiting on the results for Baffins, Drayton, Farlington and for Hilsey. But we've had Central Southsea as a Lib Dem gain, Charles Dickens is a Reform gain, Copner is a Reform gain, Cosham is a Reform gain, Eastern Cranes Water a Lib Dem hold, Fratton a Lib Dem gain, Nelson a Lib Dem hold when you compare it to when it was last up for election in 2022. Milton is a Lib Dem hold, Paulsgrove is a Reform hold, St Jude Lib Dem gain, St Thomas Lib Dem hold.
Candidates and agents for Baffins Ward for provisional results.
So provisionals
Candidates and agents
for Baffins.
for Baffins Ward for provisional results. here at the front, please.
And I think when we discussed the outcome of the council, we did a lot of number-earing to see whether Reform could get a majority on the council. I don't think we ever actually did I don't think we did the numbers to see whether the Lib Dems would get an outright majority, but if they hold Baffins, and every indication is they will do, then they'll have the magic 22.
I think I'm trying to get the.
You're trying to get our predictions up.
Yeah, I've hidden them on the spreadsheet, which is really useful.
So I guess then, if we look at, we're expecting Hilsey. Hilsey was another one which we expected to be a huge Reform win. Baffins, I think, was there or thereabouts, but again, with the way it's been going, you'd expect the Lib Dems to retain that. And I guess the acid test for the Conservatives is, will they retain Drayton and Farlington as they have forever and ever? Or, I guess it's that question of, if my maths is right, then the expectation was that Reform were going to get between 6 and 10 seats. At the moment, I think they've only got 4. Well, we think they're going to get Hilsey, which would give them 5.
Sorry, one second. Sorry. So we're joined by Simon Bosher.
Simon.
I was going to say good evening, guys, but it's probably good morning.
It is the morning.
Remember what day it is.
You're still waiting for your ward to be declared, Simon.
We've agreed the provisional result, and I've been successful, which is
excellent.
Only marginally, only by about 25 votes or there and thereabouts, but with a turnout of 49.6%. So that's probably the highest turnout in Drayton and Farlington that I can remember in my lifetime. It's been an interesting campaign, I think.
Everybody, the last one for provisional results. This is candidates and agents.
And certainly, certainly it's been very challenging out there on the doorstep. A lot of it, I think, has been protest vote against the Labour government.
Yeah.
And I think we found ourselves squeezed in the middle a little bit. But my faith in my residents, they've now elected me for a 25th consecutive year, which means I've probably been serving on Portsmouth City Council longer than some of the newly elected councillors have actually been alive, which makes me feel extremely old.
Well, and I guess, I don't think we can pretend it's been a good night for the Conservatives. Really hard to lose Ben Swan.
Very much so.
But I guess you must be delighted even to get over the line by a few votes. A win is still a win.
All the predictions were suggesting that we were going to lose both the seats that we were up for. So it's very tragic to lose Ben. He's a very hard-working councillor and has served the residents of Copland and Anchorage Park loyally for a number of years. But I think what we're actually seeing tonight, probably, and it's probably echoed across the country, is more of a Reform protest vote against the Labour government in that respect. And certainly where I was, I had a number of Labour voters, traditional Labour voters, say to me as they came out of the polling station, I normally vote Labour, but I can't, and I voted Conservative instead, which I think is a very telling.
Okay.
It's very telling, I think.
And it looks like it has been a splendid night for the Lib Dems. I think most of, I think there was a forecast that they would probably hold what they had, but I don't think anybody expected them to make the gains. It's been a surprise in the south of the city, the way that's gone.
Well, I've been in touch with some of my opposition colleagues in the south of the city, and I think they were pretty optimistic of picking up more seats, probably more so than Reform was suggesting. I think at one point they were suggesting a sweep of 10 seats in the city, and it certainly hasn't proved to be that. I mean, Liberal Democrats have a majority on the City Council now, and I'm struggling to remember the last time that a party had an outright majority on the city council, but I'm sure you'll tell me different.
It predates us. If we've only been in this game 7 years, Simon, and we've
2018 was when it went to the Lib Dems into just a Lib Dem no overall control. But I can't remember whether you guys had a majority at that point or not, or whether you'd gone from a majority to no overall control and then switched.
I think we were the largest party at that point, and I think there was we had a number of UKIP councillors elected, and some of them supported us, some of them remained neutral. So we were sort of propped up a little bit by UKIP during that time. And I think probably going back to 2003, possibly, Dems, I think, had a majority then after what they called the Rainbow Alliance in 2002, when we had the cabinet of all three parties, basically, with the Conservative leader. And I think it was the following year that Gerald got elected and went straight into being leader of the city council. So I could be wrong, but I think it's probably 2003. So it's a very, very long time. It's a very, very long time.
But it's interesting to then get overall control in essentially the last 2 years of the council's existence.
Yes, yes, and it's up to them to use that opportunity wisely, I think, going forward. Certainly there's a lot, even though there's only 3 Conservative councillors, we will still have conversations with the Liberal Democrats and support them in places that we know is the right decisions for Portsmouth, as we all albeit opposition, some very good councillors such as Tom Cole, the former Lord Mayor.
Yeah.
Excellent councillor, very agreeable, hardworking, and Shah as well in Cossam.
Yeah.
They've, as we did 2 or 3 years ago, lost some very hardworking councillors that didn't really deserve to lose their seats, but sometimes national government's decisions, it's the foot soldiers, if you like, that work in the local councils are the ones that pay the highest price for that.
Yeah, which is a shame if you like, because it's at the end of that's the kind of dichotomy, isn't it? Where lots of people often talk about whether at locals people are voting for the person or the party, but no matter how good the person is, it seems that you can't be immune from what's happening at the national level and affected by it, no matter how good you are as a councillor.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, nearly there, home straight. Okay, this is for Drayton and Farlington.
You better run off.
Followed
Thank you, Simon.
Muffins and then Bristol.
Well, this one might not come as a shock to our listeners.
Drayton and Farlington ward, please.
Okay, so just in case anybody didn't realise, that was Simon Bosher, who's the leader of the Conservative group on Portsmouth City Council, and he's the candidate he was up for re-election in Drayton and Farlington. So we'll see.
I think he might win it, Simon, if I'm honest.
I think our predictions, we both had it going that way. It was interesting looking back on them. I think it's been another year where I've got very Simon Bosher that we were just speaking to.
I'll keep this brief because I don't think he actually did. Firstly, I'd like to thank all staff that have stayed up until almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and those that worked in the polling stations as well. I'd also like to thank the residents of Drayton and Farlington who've elected me for my 25th consecutive year on Portsmouth City Council, which I think makes me, well, some of the candidates that have been elected today probably weren't even born when I was first elected, so I feel decidedly old. But finally, I'd also like to thank my ward colleagues, Spencer and Hannah, and also to Thomas, my agent, to David, and Ben, sadly we lost Ben, for a sterling effort and a wonderful Conservative team that we have here in Portsmouth. Thank you.
Well, that's the closest one tonight, just 25 votes in it.
Can I ask the candidates for Baffins to join me on the stage, please?
I'd like to think that the 25 votes were garnered out of Simon coming on the hustings, and let that be a lesson to every candidate that didn't come on last year.
Well,
can't be proved, can't be disproved. So Baffins, this is the one. The Lib Dems get across the line here. They've got the majority, and I think the hint has been that they've got there. So.
Kadir, commonly known as Abdul Kadir, Liberal Democrat, 2,100 votes. Dave Giovanni Leme da Silva, local Conservatives, 327 votes. Darren John Staley, Reform UK, 2,015 votes. David Anthony Simpson, the Green Party candidate, 468 votes. The number of ballots rejected were 10, and the turnout for Baffin's ward was 47.3%. I therefore hereby declare that Mohammed Abdul Kadir, commonly known as Abdul Kadir, is duly elected to the Baffins ward. Congratulations.
Well, that one was tight, Simon, but that's the magic 22.
What a night. Well, thank you to our chief ex, and I think all the staff, everyone's gone home actually, and we're all tired. But I'd like to say a very personal thank you to my team, Lib Dem office, Ed, Peter M. Where's Peter? And Felix, who's, without their support, I don't think I would be here. You can see the turnout, and you can see the numbers of people which is good. And that's what we believe in democracy, people. And today's result, we'll be losing a few friends across the parties. Shah, Yenka, we made good friends, and I hope we will continue to be friends in other days. So I'm not going to say a lot, but thank you all. And we've got a few newbies coming in, and I'm looking forward to working and learning from you guys. So good night, and thank you. And thank you to Baffins for trusting me once more to serve them as their councillor. Thank you.
That's one you got right and I got wrong.
So my apologies for that. I know we've having some connection problems with
Say we
it
don't
kind of
have
dropping
to
out
do
there.
that.
So that's Baffin's Lib
So
Dem
you've got
hold.
16 minutes and I'm going to come back.
We've got
This is the final one, folks. So this is the declaration of results for Hilsey Ward. If I can have the candidates on stage, please.
declaration for Hilsey.
And this will be it. And, well, I guess, terrible night for Labour, bad night for the Conservatives, ordinary night for the Greens, okay night for Reform, good night for the Lib Dems.
Yeah, but I think it's more than a good night, I think, for the Lib Dems. They've certainly pulled one out of the bag here.
Okay, here we go, folks. The declaration of results for Hilsey Ward. I, Natalie Brahma-Pearl, being the returning officer for this election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Matthew Jeremy Atkins, the Conservative Party candidate, 470 votes. Edward Batterbury, Labour Party, 562 votes. Emma Louise Kimberly Murphy, the Green Party candidate, 574 votes.
So another Green beating Labour.
Yeah. Ahead of Labour and the
Russell
Conservatives.
Peter William Simpson, Reform UK, 2,067 votes. And Christine Tiani, Liberal Democrat, 526 votes.
126, so
Greens win second.
There were a total number of 11 ballots rejected, and the turnout for Hilsey Ward was 41.8%. Therefore, I do hereby declare that Russell Peter William Simpson is duly declared to Hilsey Ward. Well done.
I will keep this quite short. Obviously, I'd like to thank all the staff of the council who have actually gone all home. And I'd like to thank all the Hilsey residents for faith in me. I've put a lot of time into Hilsey. It's my childhood ward. It means a lot to me to be elected again. It's a real privilege. I also want to talk about how difficult the campaign has been for so many that have got injuries. I think that should really be highlighted. I think everyone's worked really hard. I think across all parties, I think everyone can agree on that and have a little bit of a rest and hopefully a lot more kindness.
okay. So with Russell, so that then takes the council to Lib Dems 22,
That's it.
Labour
Thank you,
4,
everybody.
Conservatives 3,
And
Reform
hope you
12,
sleep well this
Independent
evening.
1.
And thank you to all the count staff and all the staff that assisted in
Quite
this
an extraordinary night.
beforehand,
Yes.
and also during the day and this evening.
An unexpected outcome in the end. But fabulous to be here, Simon. I think unless we are avalanched by anybody in the next 30 seconds, I think we will sign off for the night. Well, the wee small hours of the morning, and pack down and head home.
Yeah. Let's see whether...
I think everyone's heading for their bed. So we'll sign off in the usual. You've been listening to the Pompey Politics podcast through the dead of night at the Portsmouth Count 2026. I've been Ian Tiny Morris.
and I've been Simon Sainsbury. Sorry, I'm just trying to see whether anyone was wandering our way. Looks like the Lib Dems are going to do a bit of a
conga around
bit of a group photo for the news by the look of it. I don't know whether we want to hang fire for a second just in case anyone wants to grab us from them. But thank you very much anyway for bearing with us. Well, apologies for the technical issues. We haven't heard anything from Hampshire. The last that we heard from Havant was that the county pods, they were still validating.
Yep.
And they were doing the county and then moving on to the borough. So they passed the towns like they haven't even got to the borough votes yet.
So we are so glad we are not broadcasting live from Havant.
Yeah. Yeah, so we shall see. So we'll see whether any Lib Dems wander this way. We'll just give them a chance, and then we'll bail. We'll probably be back sometime mid-June to do our summer season before we then break for summer. So we're usually in mid-June to the end of July. So do make sure that you follow the podcast wherever you listen to it, or if you're catching us on YouTube or Facebook, follow it by all means, follow and subscribe us there. And if you want to keep in touch, do sign up to our newsletter. But thank you very much for bearing with us. We've got I don't know if you can see on the image there, we've got a load of Lib Dems holding up a load of placards in an exuberant fashion, as one might expect from quite a barnstorming night for them in an evening where the national image has been reform. Labour getting a kicking.
Labour got their kicking,
yeah,
but the Lib Dems took home the big prize.
Yes, they did indeed. So that was interesting. Just trying to see whether I could catch Russell's eye as he left, but off for some rest, content with his victory, I should imagine.
And credits.
Yes.
One last time, okay? 3, 2, 1.
Okay. Everyone is either heading to a bed or heading to a bar, and we're going to pack up and call it a night. But thank you very much for following through in what's certainly been rather a long but definitely an interesting evening. And thanks very much for following us. Sorry.
That's all right.